Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all recovered from a very happy snowy Halloween. I have to say that the snow is quite lovely. Waking up this morning. Yeah, I know it's a matter of opinion, but it is pretty. And this is All Saints Day for those of you who practice the faith, and just a reflection on all the good souls that have been in this building for a very long period of time, doing good stewardship, making best decisions as they can. So I'd like to honor all of those as just as a little memory of we're in a former chapel. So that's the reflection. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, November 1st. It's 9:06. And clerk, could you please call the roll?
Allen,
remotely if allowed.
Bates, Berman, Davis,
Davis here.
Ford,
Ford present.
Gums,
Here.
Caius, Kenyon, Lewis,
Here.
Linder,
Linder remote.
Molina,
Present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present remotely.
Strathman,
Here.
Surges,
Surges present.
Tepe,
Jumpy here.
Pirog.
Here.
You have an in-person quorum.
Very good. May I please have your permission to allow Mr. Allen, Miss Allen, I'm sorry, Mr. Linder and Mr. Sanchez to attend remotely?
Yes, consent.
Everybody has consent with that? Okay. Miss Allen and gentlemen, you are welcome to attend.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Has anybody said no to that yet? You tried to attend remotely?
No, we're all being very courteous. Miss Molina, could you please, the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which is stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
All right, may I please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 4th, 2023?
Lewis will move.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Second, please. Mr. Ford, any comments or adjustments, edits to these minutes? Seeing none. Could we please have a voice vote? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. We have quite a bit of public comment. And I'd like to remind everybody that if you are on agenda, you may speak for 5 minutes. And because of the amount of people who wish to speak, that'll be a firm 5. And then we will cut off your microphone. So please be aware, but please be courteous with that so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. For those people who are off agenda, you'll be waiting to the end of the meeting. And you'll be given an opportunity then to speak for 3 minutes. So with that understanding, I'd like to invite Mr. Lobel, Kenneth Lobel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for all you do. I appreciate it. We all do. And we appreciate the stewardship of the funds that we pay taxes for. The reason I wanted to get up is simply I was at the finance committee meeting, I think it was last week, and something came up that struck me as odd, and I just wanted to bring it up for a couple of reasons. My job is to find and identify risks before they happen and bring those to clients' attentions. There's a very big risk happening right now in our financial system, very big, so big that it's comparable to 1929, and not using hyperbole. What I heard at the finance committee was that surplus and reserve funds were potentially being used for salaries and benefits of positions. In corporate finance, we have working capital. Working capital is used for day-to-day operations. Surplus and reserve funds are for emergencies. My concern as a financial advisor of 27 years and teaching at multiple universities in corporate finance and looking at the economics understanding that things are going on behind the scenes that the average person doesn't pay attention to. Okay. And what's happening right now is central banks are failing. The Australian central bank has failed. The only thing keeping it alive is they have the ability to print money. Other central banks are failing. The central banking system is failing. And countries are going off of the petrodollar, which was forced upon them after World War II in order to purchase oil. As a result, what's anticipated to happen, and the time frame is impossible to really predict, but we may see a financial catastrophe that's worse than 2008 and goes much deeper recession. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that to scare anybody, but I ask for extreme stewardship of our tax dollars. We're being squeezed at the federal level. We're being squeezed at the state level. And unless we're a public employee or a union member, we don't have wage increases. In fact, we have increased costs, less profits, lower earnings, and we still want to support our families too. So what I would ask you to do is, if we have surplus funds, keep those for rainy day or return them to the taxpayers. If they're surplus, they're more than you budgeted for, but don't use them for working capital, because I think in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to go through some financial event where we're going to need every penny of surplus fund that we can possibly have. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but my job is to deal in reality. And the reality is that if we don't be prudent now in this former church and be stewards, then we'll have nobody to blame but ourselves. And some of the things that are happening, there's 187 banks that are on a list of potential failures in the near term. There's been literally trillions of dollars pulled out of our banking system. 2 years ago, the repo market, which is behind the scenes piping that makes our system work, was failing, and the Federal Reserve needed to pump in billions of dollars every month for 4 months in a row. The general public doesn't really follow this, and nor would they want to. But the essence is our financial system is on a crash course, and it's also being replaced with a quantum financial system. And that quantum financial system could go one of many ways. Prudence would dictate to reserve our surplus funds for emergencies, to have them available, and to expect something to happen within the next 12 months. So I just ask you, number one, trust your committees. If committees come up with decisions, please follow the decision of the committees. Otherwise, you're telling your committees you don't trust them. So don't make a unilateral decision above your committees. If they make recommendations, please follow that. And as a taxpayer, if you have surplus funds and reserve funds, please don't do what they did with our national oil reserves and deplete those right during a time when World War III is taking place all over the world. And it puts us in a really precarious position, but it fits very well strategically those that want a new world order, a World Economic Forum, and it fits right in line with the strategy. So I'll close. Thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this. Please be prudent with surplus and reserve funds.
Frank Esposito, please.
Good morning, everyone. And once again, thanks for the opportunity to speak. You all kind of know me now. I've been to so many meetings. You kind of know what my background is and what my feelings are about raising taxes. I do a lot of research on the website, and I see that there are jobs available. And I noticed something about many of them. They're for 30 hours a week. And I'm going to do some more investigating, because I'd like to know, do we have a lot of people that work 40 hours, a regular 40-hour work week, or is everybody or the majority on 35 hours? I'm sure there are some people not to mention any names, that are doing a lot more than 40 hours a week to put information together. So I will look into that. My main reason today to speak is that at the last meeting, the Finance and Budget Committee, there were two items that were voted down, which happened to be on this agenda as new business. I don't quite understand why, if one committee submits a balanced budget to another committee, why is something that was taken out back in for discussion? So I would like everybody to really seriously think about these two items, because I got a feeling that you're going to vote on these two items again as this committee. And then it goes to the full board. And then will it be voted on again if it gets turned down here? So I don't know if the parliamentarian can address the issue as to, is that something that always happens, that an item that's voted down is passed on to the next committee? So that's my concern. But I'm learning. As we go along, I'm a slow learner, but I will learn. And then we'll see how we should function. I don't envy your position. It's tough to have the services that we have to provide to our citizens and do it in a cost-effective way. But the way the economy is going, the fact that I did a projection of what my real estate taxes would be if we did the increase for the real estate taxes. And because I put a new patio in the back of my house last year, I'm going to be paying $41 more this next time. That's not a lot of money. And for me, I really, it's okay. But I think about all the people out there that maybe even $10, $15 for the year might be difficult when the cost of bread is going up, the cost of all food is going up, gas is going up. So just please really think about your constituents out there and what they're going through. Thank you.
Brian Anderson. And Mr. Anderson, you did not specify what item you're referencing on your form.
Good morning,
Good
Brian
morning.
Anderson, Sugar Grove, Illinois. And yes, when I filled out the online, I said agenda item. And so I'm here today also for the committee meeting. It was on the 25th. I've got a couple talking points, but my interest was piqued, Madam Chair, when you said, hey, we're all here for Saints Day. Let's be good stewards. That's why we're here. We want to be good stewards. And we want to see you, this group, and the larger group to be good stewards for the 540,000 people that live in Kane County, the 301,000 registered voters that actually want to make a difference and care about fiscal responsibility, right? So I know you can't answer during this. And again, I have some talking points, but this fine citizen, Frank, had a question. He was curious why it's back on the agenda. For that citizen, Frank, the chair has she can put that back on the agenda. I haven't read all the Roberts rules, but I think that there's a statute that she actually should get with her board for consent and advice that it should be on. But I digress. So on that finance committee meeting on the 25th, I was actually delighted to see that out of a finance committee group of 7, 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans, the vote was 5-1. We don't want it. But here we are. Illinois faces the second highest gas tax in the nation. Illinois has multiple layers of gas taxes. There's a motor fuel excise tax, one of the highest in the nation. Wouldn't you figure I can't get it when I need it? This is off, and I don't have my glasses, excuse me. This is off the Tax Foundation, July 2023. So I apologize, I'm not up to date on November 1st, but Illinois, and for all you fact checkers on the board, it's the Tax Foundation. Illinois already is the second highest in the nation. Okay, I get it. Let's take a look at this one. This is off the Illinois Department of Revenue. Currently, Kane County, I believe, and I stand to be corrected, it's 4 cents. So we're currently getting about 9.6 million in revenue annually. If we want to go ahead and raise the taxes 8 cents, well, the projection is you'll take in $19,245,000. That's great. Here's the good news. Our treasurer, Chris Lawson, found a surplus of $10 million. So if we leave the tax the way it is and the 10 million that he found, there's the 19 million. We don't need to do anything. Problem solved. As I close, as the other speakers have said, we're looking for fiscal responsibility. Prices are going up. We just got our ComEd bill, went up another $70. Gas is up. Everything's up. But again, some of these things are out of your control. This is one that's in your control. So I would encourage each one of you to look in the mirror. Should we be doing this at this time? And oh, by the way, this is nothing new. As I close, March 15th, 2022, it would still be lower than DuPage and Lake County gas tax, says the chairman. So she's been pushing this for a long time. I suggest the board send a prudent message. We're not going to raise the gas tax. Thank you.
Mr. Lobel? Kenneth, you already spoke. I'm sorry. Here we go. Jim Whittington?
Good morning. I've spoken here before. I've been a taxpayer since 1979 in King County. And I want to commend our first speaker. Extremely impressive, but one would conclude from his caution about dipping into reserves that means you should just go ahead, raise the taxes, then don't touch the reserve. But again, I'm pleading for you to become more prudent on the expense side. There's got to be ways for you to cut expenses. And as he pointed out, all the public employees and the pension, the union guys, they're all getting raises. The UAW is getting big raises, but none of the ordinary workers working for regular employers are getting those raises. And at the same time, they're facing increased costs as Brian just mentioned. So again, I believe the timing is all wrong for what you're considering in terms of raising taxes. We're at an extreme tipping point, as Mr. LaBelle just said. All of us are reviewing our own household budgets. No one's buying steak and lobster anymore. We're buying chicken and tuna. You've got to look again at the budget. You've got to put away your rubber stamps, take out your pencil sharpeners and your erasers, and you've got to cut the expenses. There is waste there. You just aren't looking for it. And usually the standard response from some of you is, oh, geez, we're going to have to cut off the policemen. We need police protection. You always go to the low-hanging fruit. You always pick out something that's going to scare everybody instead of looking for there's real waste and not like picking that example and saying, oh, that's what's going to happen. We're going to cut policemen. No, we don't want that. But anyway, let me just add a few names and faces to the comments that Mr. LaBelle brought out this morning. This is from the New York Times. Jamie Dimon. Everybody heard of Jamie Dimon? He's been the chairman of JP Morgan Chase for, I don't know, decades now. First time in his life, he just announced he's selling 1 million shares of his stock. Now, why would he do that? He's got to announce it. It's required. That's because he knows there's going to be a big drop in the stock and he's going to take his profit now. Okay. And so he just came out on October 13th. This is out of the New York Times, a favorite, publication of, the Democrats and the leftists. JP Morgan Chase chief executive is as close as Wall Street has to a statesman. And on Friday, he sounded a major alarm. This may be the most dangerous time the world has seen in decades, he said in a statement accompanying the bank's quarterly earnings. He warned of far-reaching impacts on energy and food markets, global trade, and geopolitical relationships. On Friday, he said he is preparing the nation's largest bank for a range of scary outcomes, with other risks, including high inflation and rising interest rates. Okay? Same thing. CNBC and Reuters. I know some of the board members like to cite NBC as their source of information. And it just says forecasters have been really wrong on the economy recently, but it's nothing new. They've always been wrong. I was amused yesterday to hear that JP Morgan Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon, I cut that off, but it was kind of echoing the same thing from Business Insider. Not just Jamie Dimon, Elon Musk and Ray Dalio just issued fresh warnings about the U.S. economy. Okay. They all have serious concerns on the U.S. economic outlook. And then there were three other pundits, Leon Cooperman, David Solomon, and David Rosenberg, have also predicted trouble in recent days. Several of these experts anticipate a full-blown recession to hit next year. And then I was going to read all of a recent letter that Chris Lausen, your treasurer, wrote. But I don't think I need to do that, but he's been very clear in giving you a report that there is surplus funds in other areas that you can use and not raise our taxes. And again, at the same time, you should be cutting expenses. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Michelle Bettag.
He's not on.
Hi, Michelle Bettag from St. Charles. We've all been coming here for almost the majority of the year. When things don't make sense, there's usually a reason because something isn't right. When Brian mentioned about Madam Chair's comment about 2022 and the gas tax, you have to look at the bigger picture of what is going on when the board or the committee votes no by an overwhelming majority. You have to wonder why this is brought on the table. And, most of us here are probably pretty aware of what's going on in the bigger picture outside of this boardroom. I'm sure some of you people, are in your retirement years, have plenty of money. You have one person or two people to buy food for. You have no college to be, spending. Possibly your home is paid off. But in the end, a lot of the Kane County residents don't have that same situation, and they're hurting desperately. So gas tax, has been on high alert for many months now, across probably some of the media that we listen to or that I listen to as being, an agenda item for getting rid of gas cars and, forcing electric car situation. And, the highest admissions standards are going to be put in place so people don't get gas vehicles. The agenda is clear. Madam Chair, we know the agenda or the marching orders that you're getting from higher up. It's very clear. Everyone knows the grift, everyone knows. So I want to mention, I mean, I'm proud of some of these board members who might have been a little asleep in the last few months as far as the agenda and what they're trying to do to Illinois citizens, actually the United States of America citizens. The first gentleman and Jim Weddington, you know, the economy is horrible. Our country is being attacked from at least 4 different angles, and we're being spread extremely thin as far as our intelligence be able to keep track of what's going on, our borders, Ukraine, you know, Israel, everything, all the money being sent. We have no money. We have no money to defend ourselves. Our ammunition's low. Our oil reserve is depleted. You know, people are hurting, and I am thankful for the people that are finally waking up. I know a few people I've spoke with, you know, around here are seeing the big picture and the marching orders coming from the governor and whoever else is in charge that were behind the scenes. I'm asking for, you know, you can't make a deal with these people and it doesn't come back. You know, election time is coming, and the citizens of Kane County need to be made aware of this. Little room is like a fishbowl bubble. Like it's not out there. I feel when I come in here, I feel like, is it me? Am I crazy? I don't understand the thinking behind some of these votes and, you know, the unrealistic expectations that you are putting on the citizens, especially when our investments are doing well, our reserve is good. You know, stop the spending. We all are stopping our spending. I'm sure you at home, some of you are having to. I don't know about all of you. You know, a lot of you have bazillions of dollars that doesn't matter, who cares? But, you know, we are trying to raise families. We're trying to keep our homes safe. It's scary times. Please consider doing the right thing. Thank you.
John Gripe. Did I say your last name correctly?
Thank you. First of all, before I get into my thoughts about taxes, I did want, in case of any of you are thinking about what the first couple of speakers were talking about is conspiracy theory stuff, I'd seriously investigate it. Scaring the bejeebus out of me, frankly, about what's coming. But we're here today to talk about things today. It's interesting that we're in what used to be a chapel, and God was worshiped here, and maybe now it's become a bubble that keeps information and sensibility from getting into this building. Creating debt is an easy thing to do. In the last 3 months, the United States government has issued $1 trillion of new debt in the last 3 months. I don't know how they're going to support that, but what we're here, or what I'm here to talk about is taxes, obviously. It's going to take less than 5 minutes to do it. But what may not be as obvious is why I'm speaking, what makes me think that any board member will care what I say or change their minds about increasing taxes. Well, I believe in fundamental American ideas like the little guy can get ahead. Elected representatives do care about what the voters think. Tax increases are not guaranteed every time it looks like that's the only option, and board members can change their minds. Those beliefs and my history as a community volunteer have led me to run for county board. That's not why I'm speaking today, but I just want to demonstrate that attending board meetings and going home frustrated isn't enough. I had to step up and do something. Well, all of the 300 or so Kane County voters, both Republican and Democrats that I've spoken to, cannot fathom why any tax would need to go up. At first, they just shrugged it off and said, well, that must be necessary. But when I explained to them that there was 10 million, as they were talking about a minute ago, in assets, more than enough to negate any need for any tax increase in the budget fund that mysteriously moved over to the capital account beyond the reach of any of your use for operational items, they go bonkers. I get responses like, don't they know that inflation is horrible and the economy is terrible? Don't they pay taxes too? Why do they need more money when on top of what they're getting from the assessed values?
or existing gas and other taxes. As an aside, many of these folks are beginning plans to leave Kane and Illinois. Can the weather help? Probably not. These people are from my church, the community organizations I volunteer for, at the social events I've attended, or just in casual conversation in person or online. Their confusion is compounded when the county raised assessed values on homes. Several of the people I spoke with had theirs go up by 40% or more. I suggested that no board member from either party, even those who have been on the board for decades, are safe from angry, inflation-whipped, assessment-beaten, overtaxed voters. You can vote any way you want, regardless of what your constituents want, think, or feel. But accountability is coming. And if you haven't noticed a different feeling about incumbents in this country, then you will very well may figure out that you have more time on your hands after the election. Thank you.
Jean Meyer, are you here? There you are, Jean.
Hello, Jean Meyer, Christ follower, patriot. That means a lover of these United States. And I would say no new taxes. My Fox Valley Realtor every month sends me like a market analysis of what she's finding in homes in the Fox Valley. And in January of 2023, the median price of a house sold in Elgin was $357,500. By September of 2023, that's 9 months, the median price of homes sold was $493,351. I'm going to read the first price again. 9 months ago, it was $357,500. 9 months later, $493,351. In St. Charles, in January of 2023, the average price of the home sold was $389,633. And now, 9 months later, September 2023, $572,000. That's huge. So in my mind, I was saying, well, our property taxes are now going up simply because our assessed valuation is going to shoot sky high. And so over the next few years, we're going to be paying much more taxes, which should take care of any shortfalls. So I decided to do my homework. And yesterday I called the treasurer's office, Kane County Treasurer, and I talked to them about what I was surmising. And then I called the Kane County Clerk's office when I felt some of the answers were a little iffy. But in fact, what I did find was that is exactly how it works. And so we are increasing our taxes a lot by just that. And I think you need to keep that in mind with further taxes. And so if you remember what the original problem was with the British and the colonies here, was the fact that they were being taxed without representation. And so we need to keep in mind that you do represent us, and we would ask you to not raise any more taxes. Thank you very much. And I do realize you have a difficult job here. And I wish that it would be not about Republicans and Democrats, but that it would be about loving our country and looking to the future for the young people. Thank you.
Roxanne, are you here? Roxanne? Oh, okay, very good. And I believe Matt, Is Matt here to talk about solar? Yeah, there you are. Very good. I'm sorry. I couldn't quite make out your handwriting,
My handwriting is terrible, so I apologize.
as is mine.
Yes, so we have something in common. Oh, I did. I turned it off. Sorry. As one who uses microphones, I'm desperately trying not to pop my piece, so I apologize for that. I am here to talk about something that has nothing to do with taxes. So if I could respectfully ask you guys to close your laptops. I'm a former teacher. I can't help it, just so I can have your attention. My name is Matt Rodewald. I am here on behalf of the administration at Central Community Unit School District 301. We are here to address the pending petition number 4615. That is the petition to build a solar farm adjacent to the central campus along Plato Road, which includes Central High School, Central Middle School, and Howard B. Thomas Grade School. We as a district recently reached out to Jeremy Price, who is leading the group Renewable Properties, the organization in charge of this, to see if they were willing to push back and remove some of the solar panels that are directly adjacent to that property, specifically near the playgrounds of the younger elementary school children. Now, at this time, we have not heard back from the organization at all. In looking at the research, we did find some materials that spoke of EMF concerns, electromagnetic field concerns. WHO did communicate for small children, some distance from EMF might actually be prudent. But based on this, and as a means for a compromise, we did request that they consider removing a couple of rows of those panels that are adjacent to the property of Howard B. Thomas Grade School specifically. We are hopeful that they would be willing to compromise as a way to mitigate health concerns that have been raised at volume by our community. We too are trying to be good partners with all constituents involved as we realize that this impacts them very differently. Our first concern, though, is the safety of our students. And we wanted to relay this information for you ahead of your vote, quite possibly today or in front of the county of the whole, I believe in 2 weeks. I will be happy to answer any questions that any board members may have following this meeting. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Surges.
Yes, Mr. Surges.
We have, to this point with this gentleman, and I'm going to try to speak to you and not to the audience, but we have received, or at least I have received, a plethora of emails on this subject.
I agree.
Do we have, I don't know whose district this is, but do we have an open liaison working with the school, or how are we handling that, if at all?
That is being handled out of the Development Committee and their recommendations. So that would be Mr. Ford, who is the chair of that, would be discussing that because of zoning. Mr. Ford, don't need to put the heavy.
And I'm not trying to
upon
put you on
you,
the spot at all. I'm just wondering, and I can
But I-
communicate offline with.
But I
Ron.
believe that perhaps Mr. Ford, if you could leave your card, we'd be very happy to contact you for further information about this, because it will be brought up to a discussion at the full board, I believe. Isn't that accurate? Yes. So any insights that you may have, I'm sure Mr. Ford would be welcome to hear about them.
Absolutely. We'll be willing to do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And you can, just in case, you can contact my office and give it to our admin, Jane Talish, the board's, and that way she'll have all the information.
And Madam Chair, Mr. Williams just texted saying that's his district.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
thank you, Rick.
All right, that concludes our public comment. May I have a motion? Excuse me, this chair. May I please have a motion and a second to put those comments on file? Thank you, Mr.
Allen
Bates.
moves.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Clerk, please call the roll.
Voice vote.
No, we can do a voice vote. Yeah, we can do a voice vote on that. Of all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Now, Ms. Hopkinson, I'm going to ask you to sit down before you begin, because you're going to have a, I think, a robust conversation. With your approval, I'd like to have our PIO go first. She's going to do a short presentation, and I have a feeling that the presentation by Ms. Hopkinson is going to be a bit robust. So let's, I'd like to, with your approval, just to have PIO speak first.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start quickly with the fact that we're doing a ribbon cutting at the Bliss, Maine, Fabian Roundabout and Realignment on November 16th. The time may change a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that you were all aware that that's coming up, and I'm hoping that you can attend. Just wanted to point out that the same project was the feature in the Daily Herald with the drone shot. So it was their Sunday feature. It's a very good looking road project.
It really is amazing.
Wanted to highlight the fact that we did do the opening of the solar field at the Judicial Center, the official opening with a big, large switch, and we had some coverage by the Beacon and the Kane County Chronicle. These are all the stories that have been done to highlight the things that are going on in Kane County and the Kane County Board has done and Kane County Connects through the month of October. Wanted to point out that I've been working closely with the health department to take their community health survey. You can find it on the homepage or in Kane County Connects or on the Kane County Health Department's website. Coming up on November 17th, I am partnering with the Gale Borden Library to bring someone in to talk about emergency communication preparedness. A lot of communications people in Kane County have been concerned about how they would handle an emergency should one occur. So we partnered together to bring an expert together, and I'm co-hosting that at the Gale Borden Library. I also have been taking advantage of free seminars regarding AI. This is one that DuPage put on about their plans for AI. They've already got a committee together talking about the implications of artificial intelligence on government, and something that I'm going to be continuing to watch and work with IT about. Just as your public information officer, wanted you to know that the time changes on November 5th, so you won't be late for anything. And it is saving time, not savings time, which as a former reporter, I was corrected on once. And then just a really great time turnout for the Halloween Spectacular for Kane County workers and their children. The winner overall for their display was the Kane County Division of Transportation. They did an awesome job. And I just wanted to share that with anyone who wasn't able to attend that event.
Is that it?
Any questions?
Any questions? No. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I love the picture of you, Carl, right, driving the bus. Very funny.
No problem.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Kathleen, please.
Okay, I'll start off with the monthly financial reports for the executive committee are in your packet. The one thing I'll highlight is under Grand Victoria Casino. If you look at their line items, they have a budget for external grants, and they haven't spent as much to date. And in reaching out to them, they've awarded a lot of this money. They haven't yet spent it. It will probably be spent in 2024. So there's a time lag on why that number, the amount budgeted and the amount spent is so much less.
Could you please bring the microphone a little bit closer?
So did anyone else have any questions on just the monthly financial report?
It's still.
Oh, anyone have any
Yes.
questions on the monthly financial report for the executive committee? And did you hear my Grand Victoria Casino comments? Yes, okay. All right, to go over the budget. Very similar presentation to what I gave at the Finance Committee last week. I have added some additional information, which we'll be going over in a second. So the highlights of the budget, the general fund budget for 2024 is $122,418,000, which is actually $779,000 less than the 2023 budget, the fiscal year that we're currently in. Some key revenue highlights. So this includes a property tax increase of little over $2.4 million, and it includes transfers in from the two smaller RTA, the two smaller funds that receive RTA sales tax revenue, the Public Safety RTA Fund and the Judicial Technology Fund. We are not combining those funds with the general fund. We're just taking the unbudgeted amount, what they did not budget to spend, and transferring that over to the general fund. As it currently stands, the general fund is using $9.6 million of reserves to balance the budget. The expense highlights includes a 3% wage increase for non-union employees. It includes all the equity adjustments from the equity study that was done by the county. It includes all the vacant positions requested by all the departments. Also the sheriff's budget, big ticket items. We were able to reduce the sheriff's wage and salary line by $1 million in their adult corrections units and their detainee medical cost budget. We are able to, from the beginning of the budget process to now, we were able to reduce their detainee medical costs from 4.5 to 3.2 million because there is a reduction in the number of inmates that are actually in the jail now. It's actually dipped below 300, primarily as a result of the Safety Act. The special revenue funds, the total appropriation is 271 million. So the special revenue funds includes transportation, health, animal control, KingCom. Those are the bigger funds that are the special revenue funds. This represents 1.2 million more than the 2023 budget. So just an overview of the general fund, and the general fund is always the fund that has difficulty balancing. It's the fund that's primarily houses most of the employees in the county. The special revenue funds have a lot of the capital dollars, the transportation dollars, et cetera. So the general fund, the 2024 budget compared to the 2023 budget, the big differences, we've got the property taxes going from 33 million to 35 million. Other taxes, this includes sales taxes that we receive from the state of Illinois, income taxes that we receive from the state of Illinois, personal property replacement taxes, et cetera. We're forecasting a slight increase from 46 to 50 million. Licenses and permits, pretty flat. Grants going down a little bit. Charges for services, these are going down, as I've mentioned before, and as a lot of the department heads have mentioned, especially in the clerk of the circuit court. Judges are waiving fees, and so we're not collecting those revenues on court case filings. Fines, pretty flat. Reimbursements, down a little bit. Interest revenue, this includes the forecasted interest revenue that would be allocated to the general fund. The other for 2024, that 9 million includes the reserves and transfers in last year, for this current year rather, we transferred in money into our general fund from our excess reserves to balance the budgets. On the expense side, salaries and wages going from 73.6 to 78.2. That does include the equity adjustments, the cost of living, and all the vacant positions. Personnel services, employee benefits. As I mentioned before, when we budgeted for the employee benefits, we did it a little differently this year. We took a closer look at how we were budgeting for the employee benefits. So actually, we have a decrease in our general fund in employee benefits. The other thing that we've done in our general fund, we used to budget the employee benefits in the department's own budget so that that department had access to those dollars. We have all the departments that are in the general fund, we've removed that. And we put the employee benefits in what we call a countywide line item. So that because we're looking at it that employee benefits are really provided by the county. They're not provided by the department. So removing those dollars from the department and putting it under the control of the county as a whole will be better able to control those costs. And the departments won't have access to any excess dollars from employee benefits that might have been budgeted in that line item that they don't need. Contractual services are flat. Commodities are down. We took a closer look at how we're budgeting for utilities. And I do understand that rates are going up. Geneva has increased their electric rates, but we're looking at it from the standpoint of what are the actual spending, and we'd rather budget based on that. And if there does turn out to be an increase, that's what we have reserves for. Capital, there's hardly any capital in the general fund. Transfers out, we still have debt service. There's still 3 bond issues that we're paying debt on. One of those is Longmeadow. The other 2, a 2020 debt issue and a 2021 debt issue. Of that 4 million in the 2024 budget, 3 million of it is debt service for one of those bond issues. The other bond issue, we actually don't start paying the principal on it until next year. So that will, and this is the last year for this debt payment. So next year we will have another $3 million debt service payments out of this fund.
And can you explain what the 2 funds, one we know is for Longmeadow and it's in.
Well, there's 3 debt issuances right now that we're paying debt on. Longmeadow, which does not come out of the general fund. It's coming out of the RTA sales tax fund and the transportation department. And then we have the multi-use facility, and there's a judicial facility debt issuance that we're still paying debt on.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. And I updated.
And just as we should be getting an update regarding the money that is coming from the state of Illinois for Longmeadow. That's $30 million. That'll be coming in, I think, soon, within the next few weeks.
Yeah, the latest conversations that I've had with transportation is it's possible sometime in the early winter that we might be getting. There's 2 grants. There's a 17.5 million and a 12.5 million.
Correct.
Right. And then we would take those proceeds and use them to defease the debt. We will probably have to refresh the ordinance that was passed by the board in May, because at that time in May, we thought we were going to be getting those proceeds from the state before our fiscal year end, and that's probably not going to happen. So that ordinance will probably have to take it back to the board closer to the time that we're going to actually be getting those 2 grants.
Okay, very good. And just as an update for this committee, McHenry County has agreed to contribute their contribution which we worked with, which was $1 million. And on Friday, I had a chance to speak with Tony Preckwinkle, Cook County Chair, and she has also agreed to move forward with that $1 million. So that has been their contribution as well, which is what we asked for when we approached, when the state was approached to help us pay down the debt. So we are saving the taxpayers in money, $30 million, which was not forecasted previously.
Thank you.
So this is the forecast that I presented at the Finance Committee last week. I've updated it with numbers as of yesterday. So we talk about the word reserve a lot. So we need to have some emergency reserves. What the county right now has is excess reserves. And the reason why you have emergency reserves is for the rainy day, is for the emergency. One of the reasons why the county has excess reserves right now is because of the ARPA money that, and the CARES Act money that the county received over the last couple of years, which we used to pay for county salaries. Almost all of our sheriff's adult correction salaries for 2021 and 2022 were reimbursed by ARPA funds. And as you know, in the general fund, the largest line item in terms of salaries in our general fund is the sheriffs. The sheriffs, just their salaries alone are 25 million of the total 78 million. Okay, so the reserves. So as of yesterday, we have, and again, this is just the general fund. There are reserves in most of the other funds across the county, but we need reserves in some of our capital funds because we encumber those funds when we do multi-year projects. So we need those reserves for multiple years. You take out a construction contract, it takes 2-3 years to build the road or the bridge. So you need to have those reserves. But for our general fund, which is essentially operations, it's salaries, it's benefits, contractual services and commodities. We just should have our 90-day reserves, but we have more because we've been receiving all this federal money. And it's gone up just in the last, if you look at our audited financial statements, our reserves have increased just in the last 3 years in a dramatic fashion. So we have these excess reserves right now. So we have 85 million total reserves. And sort of the rule of thumb is you should have 90 days, which is in our financial policies. And that you do that calculation based on your upcoming year's budget. So if you use that, our 90-day target right now would be, we would need to have 30 million and we have 55 million more. So my forecast for where we're going to end up, so our fiscal year end is 11/30, 2023. So at the end of this month, we'll be closing our books and it'll be the end of our fiscal year. My forecast is that we'll probably end the year with 51 million in excess reserves. For 2024, we currently, the budget before you today, we are planning to use 9 million of those excess reserves to balance the budget. And as we've talked about before, the buildings management department over the last couple of years has upgraded its organizational structure and brought in professional staff to address all of the issues at all the buildings across the county campuses. This campus, the judicial campus, health, clerk of the circuit court. And they've put a 5-year capital projects plan together and identified $41 million in capital projects, including HVAC, fixing roofs, fixing leaking windows, etc. And currently for their 2024 budget, we have funded their 2024 budget with what they plan to complete in the first of their 5-year capital projects. And then if you go forward, 25, 26, 27, they had budgeted 8.2 million in capital projects for 2025, about 8 million in 2026, 7.3 million in 2027, and so on. And historically, the general fund is the only fund that funds the capital project, bar some sort of a special grant that the county might receive. So every year, the county general fund typically transfers anywhere from 4 to 6 million to the capital projects fund. For 2024, we're not doing that. We're not budgeting that yearly transfer because the capital projects fund already has the money that it needs to fund all of their 2024 projects. But assuming they do and actually complete all of their 2024 projects, they will need 8 million in 2025 to do their next wave of projects. So if you factor in all those building management projects. And just an expected budgetary increase. I just picked 5 million. It could be less. We will have exhausted all of our excess reserves essentially by 2026. If we keep using reserves to balance the budget. And any questions on?
I have, with your permission, I have one. It had been talked about here, I believe at both finance and exec, that there may be the use of $10 million in reserves to help fund the public health building. Is that no longer on the table? We are anticipating perhaps getting a $20 million reimbursable grant from ARPA to help build the building. And the budget forecast for the entire building, with all the bells and whistles, which is too extreme, was about 39 million. And that's much too much. So thought perhaps $30 million, but it had been discussed that money would be brought forward from the capital fund to help fund the public health building if you'd like to move forward with that. And I believe that, and Jarrett is online, he can comment on this as well, just to confirm that Ernst & Young is almost done with that review, and it looks very promising for the $20 million. Jarrett, is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I can't comment on the specifics at this time, but they are completing their assessment, and there is some path forward for utilizing these funds, but I can't give a specific amount or how we would use it at this time.
All right, very good. Thank you.
But that is a yes. So because the county has been talking about using some of the ARPA funds to build a health department, because that's what some of our surrounding counties are using their ARPA funds to do. As I understand it, not every aspect of what our health department currently does would meet the eligibility requirements for the use of ARPA funds, which is why the county would have to match the ARPA funds with our local funds. I know in speaking with DuPage, that's what they are doing. They are using some of their local funds to match the ARPA funds in order to build a new health building. But yes, we would have to, we have this option of these excess funds. Also, our health department is in a separate fund in the county, and our health department's fund balance, their own reserves, are in excess of 1 year's of their expenses. So they have like 12 months of reserves. So that would be another option to look at the reserves that the health department fund has if we needed to look for matching funds.
Absolutely.
For, but you're right, we do not know as of this date what the percent allocation would be, what's eligible and what's ineligible for the ARPA funds. Okay, the next few pages, this question had come up. What other funds are utilizing reserves to balance the budget? So I just put some of the key funds at the top. The general fund, obviously, our insurance liability fund, which is the fund that we use to pay all of our umbrella insurance, our workers' comp, unemployment comp insurance. We're utilizing a bit of the fund balance to balance that fund. That insurance liability fund does have its own property tax levy, but it wasn't enough to match the expenses. Our IMRF fund, the IMRF employer contribution rate is going down. It has been going down for the last few years. but for our 2024 budget, and this fund has its own property tax levy, which we did not change, but we needed to dip into the fund balance into our reserves in order to match expenses. And then you can see some of the other funds, ARPA, obviously using 21 million of its reserves. It's a one-time grant. It's not really an operating grant. Our capital projects fund is the fund that I have continued to speak of. It has $12 million in it right now, and they're budgeting to use that to fund all of their expenses for 2024. They have no new revenue for 2024, just the, I take that back. There's a small gambling tax revenue, not much, like $100,000 that goes to that fund. On the next few pages, we have a lot of development funds that use their reserves. Again, these are more for grants, one-time expenses, special projects. Our health department has its own property tax levy. It has permit revenue and it has grant revenue, yet it also needed to dip into its fund balance in order to balance its budget. GIS, KingCom. Going the next page, there's a variety of small funds that have state's attorneys, staff budgeted in them. Those funds needed to dip into their reserves to fund those funds. And then the last page, transportation. As you can see, we've got big dollar items, particularly in motor fuel tax and transportation sales tax. As I said, these are capital projects funds for the most part that encumber funds in 1 year. And so they're automatically in reserves and they use those for multi-year projects.
Kathy, I have one question.
Mhm.
Can you please just highlight the 2 motor fuel taxes? Because there was a comment from one of our public speakers on the amount. So our local motor fuel, local option, right? Currently now we're receiving, what is the amount?
No, this isn't the amount of revenue. This is the amount of reserves they're using to balance their fund budget.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Right. Yes. So, and the county highway fund and the motor fuel tax fund are the 2 funds that have the salaries and wages for the transportation department.
And
no, this isn't the revenue. This is the reserves that are used to balance the budget.
And that money for the motor fuel tax, both local option as well as state, goes primarily to fund roads and transportation. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything that's in transportation is funding transportation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm about to go through the explanation of how our property tax extension is calculated. I borrowed slides from a slide deck. I borrowed the format from a slide deck that Mark Armstrong has put together, and I just replaced it with all the current year information. I did send him all of these slides to review to ensure that all of the numbers were correct. And so, and I think he's here today, so if anyone has any questions, he could certainly come up. But I wanted to present 3 different scenarios. So the current CPI for 2023 is higher than the PTEL limit, and the PTEL loss is you have to take the lower of the CPI or 5%. So the CPI is higher than 5%, thus we have to take 5%. The budget that's before you today does not use 5%. The county for the last 13 years has used 0. And then there's a middle number, which you can see the percent there is very extended because the way that I put together the budget is I picked a number and backed into the expense. And I will tell you, as I've been working through this, one of the challenges is that the equalized assessed valuation process takes time. So when I started in July, there was an equalized assessed value number, and it has changed over the months. And it was actually updated again just last Monday. So I was erring on the side of caution. And the another point to consider, and I think that this is why it probably took a little bit more time this year for those involved in the assessment process, is because the state of Illinois increased the general homestead exemption from $6,000 to $8,000. And they increased the senior homestead exemption from $6,000 to $8,000. And those higher exemption amounts needed to be worked through the equalized assessed valuation process. So that took a little longer than normal. So the way that the calculation is done, so that you start with last year's, what they call rate setting value. So last year's equalized assessed valuation, which was 17.4 billion across King County. And then last year's extension, which the extension is a little different than the levy by just by a little bit, very close, but we'll get to that point. So you take last year's extension and you divide it and you come up with the rate. So if you notice the rates right now, you're at the beginning of the calculation, the rate setting value is the same and the tax extension from last year is the same. So the rate is the same. So it's 0.003311. And this is the rate that would be applied to your personal equalized assessed valuation for your services of King County. And again, this is just King County services. Each school district, each fire protection district, each municipality, they do their own levy. We have no control over the levies that school districts do. They do their own, they have their own board, they vote in their own levy. So this levy is just to fund the services that King County provides, which is transportation, sheriff, state's attorney, county clerk, etc. Next slide. So the next step in the process is you apply to last year's number. You apply the percent, the inflation factor, if you will. So if you apply 5%, your current year maximum tax extension before adding any new property. So what do we mean by new property? This means property, new construction, any new property that comes onto the tax rolls that didn't exist last year. So new warehouses, new subdivisions, whatever. So the first part of this whole calculation, you do the whole calculation before you even consider new property. So you apply your inflation factor and you come up with what is your maximum tax extension before new property. And as you can see, you have different amounts based on the different percent increase that you applied. So if we took, as you know, it's common to say the full CPI on existing property, our tax extension would take us to 60,619,000. If we did nothing at zero, the tax extension would be the same. And then anything in between, you get just a dollar amount in between. Next slide, please. So the next slide, we add 2 more rows. You apply the new value. Oh, back 1. I'm sorry. back one. Oh, yes, this one. If you can make that just a little bigger too. So the last two lines are two new lines added to the slide, so that your next step in the calculation, you take what your current year rate setting value is before new property. So as you can see, the property valuation for this year is $19 billion. Last year for that same property, it's 17.4. So the property values, as they have been assessed, have increased from 17.4 to $19 billion across all of King County. And then your next step is you take that new value and divide it into your maximum tax extension, and you will see that the rate that you get is actually lower than last year because you have a higher value. So your rate is lower. So last year, the rate was 3.0033. You can see in the examples, we have 0.00318, 0.00312, 0.00330. So the rate is lower. Next slide, please. The next step is where you add in the new property. So you have your new value of $19 billion. You have your new rates. And then you bring in your new property. So the new property that has been identified and assessed is $212 million. And you apply your new rates to your new property, and you get what is the tax extension on the new property. So those amounts right there, 676, 664, 644, depending upon which inflation factor you used, that would be the revenue generated from extending your property taxes on new property. So if you did not even raise your property tax rate at all, and you kept your levy, the levy is the revenue that comes into the county. So if you kept the revenue that comes into the county the same, 644,000 of that is spread to new property owners, which means in theory, there's less to everybody else because you're spreading the levy over more property. Okay, next slide.
It should be noted that that particular spot right there, sorry, Dab was speaking, is why I have always said you never, ever not take the new construction or new growth. That mistake has been made in some years, and that is a terrible move, and it's unfair to everybody that was already here. Always take the new growth.
So
Can't say it enough.
Mr. Davis, to comment on that, so that the weight is equally shared amongst everybody here in Kane County, all property owners.
Okay, so this next slide, you add the new values of your existing property. So that's 19 billion, 44 million. And you add to that the value of your new property, 212 million, and you get a new total rate setting value of $19.2 billion. Okay, next slide. So now that you have your new value of your existing property and your new property added together, you multiply that by your rate that you calculated, and the rate, that maximum tax rate, was generated using an inflation factor. And you come up with a new maximum tax extension. So you already had a maximum tax extension. If you look at that top row, so at 5%, you had a maximum tax extension of 60 million. But now at the bottom, you have a maximum tax extension of 61 million. And why is it higher? Because you've added your new property. So that is your maximum tax extension. And so next slide, please. And I think this, yeah, this is where there's the difference between the inflation factor and a percent that could trigger a truth in taxation. So you have your prior year tax extension and your current year maximum tax extension. And you can see what the difference is that on the last line there, annual change in dollars. But when you calculate the percent annual change, you will see that if you start with an inflation factor of 5%, because you've added in new property along the way, your actual percent increase is 6.171%, which would trigger a truth in taxation hearing, which is a different rule than the PTEL rule, two separate rules. And if you applied 0, your annual change is actually 1.116%. So.
Oh, that's,
Does anyone have any questions?
oh, of course. Come on.
Mr. Sturgis, I think you're anxious. You have 2 questions, please.
Well, it's the same questions as last week, but we have slides now.
Can you go back?
Can we go back to that last one more? So in this, and I truly appreciate you trying to dumb this down to my level. But my question is, and this is what I asked last week, and your answer was the PTEL dealing and truth in lending statements, and I see where you're going with that. I tracked with that, but the 5%, 3.2, and 0, do those get applied to the existing and new? Can those be applied independently? Or you apply one, you apply it to both?
I don't think, I understand what you're asking now. I don't.
And it might be an inappropriate question.
I don't know the legality of doing that. I don't think you can, not the way that the taxes are extended and the way I understand the process, I don't think you can like do a separate levy just and apply it on the existing property and then do a separate levy for new to avoid any sort of truth in taxation.
And Madam Chair, if I can, I'm going to go out of protocol and say, Ms. Juby, in our conversations, am I asking the right question? Because Leslie and I talked and she was trying to put training wheels on me and get me to the right thing.
And we have Mr. Armstrong here who'll be able to help out with that question as well. We have one of Illinois state
Am
experts
I
here.
stating that the same way I did? I think I'm there, but I don't.
You're asking what you were looking for, yes.
And we don't know the answer of if those are separable or.
I don't think they are separable.
Okay.
Maybe Mark Armstrong has.
Armstrong, would you mind coming up?
But I don't think you
Sure.
can separate that because when
Okay.
the taxes are extended, I don't think you can do 2 separate tax
And
extensions.
Ms. Bates, if you can just hold on, let him, oh, absolutely.
Is that above and beyond? Is that just the amount that we calculate? Is that tax? What is tax?
Mike, your microphone.
This is Mark Armstrong, to answer your question. A tax extension is the amount of property taxes that is extended onto the tax base. So the levy is what you ask for. The extension is what you end up getting. Now, in many cases, the levy and the extension will be the same amount. But if you ask for a levy in excess of what you are legally allowed to do, the clerk will reduce that and the extension will be less. Now, to Mr. Sturgis's question, can a truth in taxation hearing, would a truth in taxation hearing be triggered if that levy was segmented? It really doesn't matter. Anytime the extension of the levy is, you're asking for 5% more than last year's extension, you get a truth in taxation hearing. Truth in taxation is completely separate and distinct from the property tax extension limitation law. It predates it. Truth in taxation says you can't hide behind saying we're going to keep the same tax rate by increasing the extension every year. It said to do that, you have to provide public notice and you have to offer a chance for public input. PTEL, the property tax extension limitation law, came later. PTEL said if you want to extend it more than a certain level, you're going to have to ask permission via a referendum. There are some exceptions to that, new property being the primary one. So there is no opportunity to segment rates down to avoid a truth and taxation hearing. But in truth and taxation hearing is simply just that. It's a hearing. You publish a notice in the paper, you have a hearing. Anybody who wants to come and testify before the board gets an opportunity to do so. That's the hearing part of it. And then after that, you're done. Prior to 2006, it was routine for local governments to publish a notice for a truth and taxation hearing saying they were going to double the tax levy. So we're going to ask for twice as much. The reason is precisely as Ms. Hopkinson mentioned earlier, we don't know what the final assessed value numbers are because those are still being worked through. Board of Review is still going on. Assessments are still being added in for new property. So we don't know those final numbers. So it was routine for a local government to simply say, oh, we're going to double the levy. And then they'd hold a truth and taxation hearing on that. The irony of that at that point was there was no truth in the truth and taxation. The number being asked for, everyone knew was impossible. But the idea was this way we can get the most money legally possible out of property taxpayers. And after 2006, that really fell out of fashion. There was a lot more scrutiny in the process. And so local taxing districts stopped doing that kind of thing. But that's really the limit of truth and taxation. It just triggers a hearing with the appropriate notice. If you want to collect more than 5% total tax dollars, you have to have a truth and taxation hearing. If we had $1 billion in new property, and that meant you could take money for new property, but it ended up being more than 5% even without anything else, you'd still need a truth and taxation hearing. I realize I gave you a $5 answer to a nickel question, but
No, it's coming together,
I'm hoping that was sufficient.
but don't leave. And my follow-up question to this, and I will address this to my colleague, Mr. Davis. When we keep talking about that, the two buckets, existing and new, it looks like even at the maximum for new, it's only a $20,000 swing. Am I reading that wrong? Am I oversimplifying that?
The rate is the same. Yeah, the new property is the same.
So but much to do about nothing. It's,
Where's my colleague getting $20,000?
I guess I'm looking at,
I see.
Yeah, between 676 and 664.
yeah, that one, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Mavis, do you see that?
Because the tax revenue generated by the new property is small in comparison,
Right, it's
212
new
million to
property
19
only.
billion. Yeah.
But I think in educationally, we keep looking at this as something grandiose, and the reality is it's about 20 grand. Just keep it in perspective to, if I'm looking in the mirror, just keep that in perspective.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
And the difference between taking a zero, keeping the property tax flat and raising it 3.2% is 2.8 million or 2.4 million, 2.4 million. So, and we've got $122 million budget proposed. So that's only $2.8 million that has been a great concern about people who have been in the audience who've been speaking about that for 2.4 million for a long period of time. But I also want to remind everybody that part of that $2.4 million includes our veterans, the veterans support, which we have to include in that levy, in the total amount, because it has to be included.
Right, the Veterans Commission can increase their property tax levy on their own.
Can you, the microphone?
The Veterans Commission can increase their property tax levy on their own. So they've increased it the last 2 years. So we had to, as I was doing the calculation, sort of back into a number and take into consideration their increase.
Correct.
And that's a state law that says the Veterans Commission can do that.
That's one of those mandated services that you're asking about, sir.
And to that end, I don't want to vilify Mr. Zimmerman and his
My gosh,
department.
no.
They are head and shoulders exceptional. This was a law that came from Springfield and he's taken far less.
Oh, there's no
Yes,
vilification
I
at
don't want to
all.
make that statement sound like, ooh, those bad guys.
No,
Oh
they're
my gosh.
not at all
opposite.
bad guys. They're
Yep.
wonderful guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Just a bit of clarity that my colleague brought up. The reason for my comment wasn't the $20,000 difference between taking 0 or 5%. It's the recognition of the new growth, which is $644,000, but it goes beyond that. And Mark Armstrong explains it much better than me. You ignore it once, you've lost that forever. It's like compound interest, right? So if you leave that out of the equation and move on to the next year and the next year, you've really surrendered far more than just 644,000, which in my world is still a substantial amount of money, $644,000. So that's my reason for saying, don't ever leave the new construction out.
Agreement, sir.
In anybody's world, $644,000 is a good amount of
The
money.
county's been taking the new construction since 2017.
Yes.
Right.
Thankfully.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. Same slide that we had last week. For 2024 budget, we've budgeted $12 million in interest earned is in the budget. It's allocated to all the funds in the county based on how much cash that fund has. This is how the county has always done this allocation. Next slide.
Can we
Yep.
hold back for just a second? There were some questions that were asked about the interest earned allocation, and we've heard it several times from public comment as well as from our treasurer. But a question was presented from the board last week. And I know that Mr. Frank called me yesterday afternoon and is not ready to put together a final document to the board yet, but has made to me a couple of comments, just a voice message. We do know that the ARPA funds are allowed to be transferred over. Those can be used for general purposes. Transportation, were able to confirm whether or not that is a opportunity for us to transfer over, or does that remain with them? Because those are the large funds. I don't mean to put you in the spot, but the timing is now.
Frank SAO, if you give me a minute or two, let me go check my notes that I got from my staff and I can see if that's one of them we can speak
Okay,
to.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do know the state statutes for the motor fuel tax fund say that any interest earned on those monies have to stay within the fund.
Okay.
And I know for impact fee revenue, which is also transportation department, our county code says that any interest earned on impact fee revenue has to be utilized for the same purpose.
And I see Carl nodding his head, Mr. Sherrill, so that is confirmed. So that is.
Are these slides posted someplace? For collaborative purposes, can we?
They should be on
I believe they were, they're there, they're in the
They're in
package.
the packet. I got, you're able to.
Okay. Well, oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Chair,
Excuse
point
me.
of order.
Yeah, point of order, please. All right, go ahead while we're looking for Mr. Frank is pulling up his notes.
Madam Chair Gums,
Yes, Ms. Gomes.
just to clarify on the packet, I
Microphone.
believe it is not the same as the last, we got an email later last night,
Well, this
changing some of them. And
this slide, the interest earned slide is the
Yeah.
same slide. It
so
hasn't
just for
changed.
clarity, I mean,
Right.
it's not identical.
Right, this slide presentation today is built off of what I gave last Wednesday, but it has a whole host of new slides. All the slides on the use of reserves in each fund and the property tax calculation that we just went through. those are new, but there's some of these old slides, as we go through the budget process, since this is a part of the budget that hasn't changed. I'm keeping these slides in the packet. So this next slide is the result of the equity study that was presented to the board, said across all funds in the county, general and special revenue funds, that $1.8 million in equity adjustments were identified. And here are the results by department. As was also presented, not every county department participated in the study. So in addition to this 1.8 million in equity adjustments, for all the departments that participated in the study, the state's attorney's office did their own equity adjustments, and they have a $1 million equity adjustment line item in their department budget in the general fund, just for their department, which is in addition to this.
Can we create a slide? Can we recreate that slide? And under where it says total, add the state's attorney one, so we have it
Sure.
all in one area?
Sure.
Would that be okay? I mean,
Yes, that would be okay. And that's the end of my presentation on the budget.
Could we please go back?
Sure.
Mr. Frank is ready to just give, he'll present a much more formal presentation to the board next week regarding interest earned. I think you'll be ready at that point. And they've obviously, there's been a lot of wonderful questions. We have dug into this budget this time around much more deeply than we had the previous, with some really exceptionally good questions. And I think we've gained a lot of knowledge on all of this. But with those wonderful questions have come the opportunity for our staff to really dig into it and to do some additional research on this. So one of them is obviously, how do we use interest earned? Because one of the advantages of being in this period of time is that we've had high interest rates. We all look forward to having inflation go down and to be back down to the 2-3% range. And with that will be less interest. So we go back to normal pricing, normal expenses because of the increase of interest. But the interest has been able to earn a great deal for the county and for personal savings accounts, et cetera, as well. So it's gone cross board. But here's just a couple of lines that they've been able to find out information about the taxes, or I'm sorry, about the interest earned.
SAO Frank. So generally speaking, when we're talking about this type of stuff, the crux of the question comes down to where did the money originally, or where did the source of the fund originate from? So if it's a county originated fund, then generally, yes, you can use the interest to move over for the general fund purposes. If it's a fund that is dictated from a special levy or from a state statute that's given to us by the state, then usually there's some direction on whether or not that interest can be moved over. Generally speaking, it would probably be not. There are a lot of funds that we are finding that have kind of a mixed bag. A lot of those are going to be related to transportation, where some of the monies are being funded by the county, some of the monies are being funded by outsides. And so you get into a larger question of whether or not specifically that money can be moved over. So that's why this is taking a little bit more time than we were anticipating. There's also like 400 special reserve accounts. So that's part of this as well. We're starting with the largest dollar items just for purposes of being able to explain the ones that maybe actually have some impact if they're moved. But that's the general kind of gist of what the direction will be. As far as the specifics, we'll have that for you for Monday.
And that's why, from an accounting perspective, the county has always allocated the interest earned to all the different funds, because except for ARPA, everything is pooled. The county pools its cash and investments, and then each fund is allocated a share of that. And so the interest earned is just allocated along with that share. And that's historically how the county has done it.
Does everybody under any questions on that? Mr. Surges, yes.
This is not specific to the interest. This is not specific to the interest. Is that okay?
All right, well, hold on. Does anybody have any questions about the interest?
Madam
Because-
Chairman, Allen,
Oh, yes, yes, Miss Allen, absolutely.
what I was going to suggest was this. If the interest goes into those accounts, then during the year, when those accounts are being spent, there's a little more money in there than was originally budgeted. So at the end of the year, there may be money left over because the interest came in, it wasn't all spent, and so there was some money left over. Is that not true? And maybe one of the reasons that we end the year with money left over from our budget?
I will let Kathy, or perhaps since transportation has got the larger part of it.
So your question is if interest earned comes in and it creates excess revenues or over expenses, that excess in all these funds across the county should be transferred to the general fund?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying
okay.
that at the end of the year, typically for several years now, we've ended up with money left over. At the end of 21, we had money left over. At the end of 22, we had money left over. I'm wondering if part of the reason we had money left over was that we had this interest coming in and the departments or the offices didn't spend it all. That's the comment I'm asking.
So the reason why we had money left over in the last couple of years, 21 and 22, is because of the ARPA money. We didn't have these great interest earned coming in. And if you look at our fiscal 22 column, which is on the slide to the far right, for financial reporting purposes, if you take a look at our audit report, we actually had to report a net loss for our audit report. So the interest earned is really, it's coming in now in 23 and in 24. So in our general fund, the excess was really created by the ARPA and the CARES funds.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on interest earned? Yes, Mr. Ford.
Madam Chair Ford. So when it's all said and done, out of this interest gross amount, how much of that goes into the general fund?
So
Also see all others, which I don't know quite what that is. And then we do have the general fund interest that's up there too. So how much of this actually goes back into the general fund?
So for 2024, based on the percent allocation of cash across all funds, we budgeted $1.6 million in the general fund as it's shown on that slide. And the all other funds are all these other funds that are part of the budget, that are part of the development office has a series of funds, environmental management, state's attorneys, all of these 124 funds that the county has. I just rolled them up because just in the interest of presenting a short slide, but the biggest, probably about a third of all the interest earned is going to the transportation department because the transportation department has the most cash in the county. They have 17 funds.
That's it. That's it.
You look quizzical still.
Not quite. So one of these budget amounts is the general fund. So that
Yes.
interest from that general fund, I'm looking at that 2.5 plus. Does that go back into the general fund?
The ARPA
Yeah,
funds?
that is the estimate. We don't have, that is just our estimate. We do not have, we haven't posted interest earned for most of this year yet, but that is our estimate of what fiscal 2023 will look like.
Okay. And then the all others, is that spread it out somewhere else or is that part of something that will go back into?
So if we go back, Blair, can we go back to some of those slides with all those fund balance amounts? Keep going.
Page 5.
Yeah, and if you can So there are departments all over the county that have special revenue funds. So circuit clerk. And this slide presentation is just the special revenue funds that are using fund balance to balance their budget. But all of these funds have been allocated interest. So there's a circuit clerk court automation fund, which is by state statute, circuit clerk child support fund, circuit clerk electronic citation fund. There's a coroner fund. County clerk has an election equipment fund. Court services has a probation services fund. So all of these funds get a share of the interest earned based on how much cash they have.
So it's all shared. Across all funds. Yes, Mr. Surges.
While we're on this screen, I think what I heard you say was that some of these funds have their own levy. And I'm just going to use the insurance liability fund as one of them. And I think what you're saying is it levied an amount that's beyond our control and it wasn't enough.
Correct.
So we're borrowing or we're pulling from a general fund, 442,000.
No,
You understand what you said there?
So the insurance liability fund has its own tax levy, which the county, we have control except for veterans.
Can you pull up that slide, please?
Which slide?
It's there. It's the second.
Oh, there, absolutely. Thank you.
So and we're going to they're on the agenda today. We levy for our general fund, our insurance liability fund, our IMRF fund, FICA Social Security, the health department.
Transportation.
Yes, 3 transportation, county highway, county bridge, and county highway matching, and veterans. So those are all the levies, except for veterans, which we have no control over. We can move how much we levy. We can, and if you look over time, like insurance liability was higher one year compared to the prior year, and they moved some of that to, let's say, the IMRF fund based on the forecasted expenses. What I'm saying on this slide as it relates to reserves for the insurance liability fund, we have the levy the same as last year because I put the entire increase in the general fund except for the veterans piece. The levy for the insurance liability fund plus the planned interest earned for 2024 was still not enough to fund the expenses for 2024. So we had to dip into reserves in that fund. Now, our insurance liability fund, our Illinois, our IMRF, and our FICA Social Security happen to have sufficient reserves that we can do that. But kind of going back to just everything we are talking about, we should not be using reserves.
And that's
period, right?
And Madam Chair, that is, I'm trying to not break protocol. And that's what I'm trying to understand. If you have an IMRF or an insurance liability that has its own levy that is proving it's a bit, it waffles a bit, a little bit of a roller coaster there. Do we adjust that within its own levy to compensate for it? A few years back, IMRF went through the roof because interest rates were low. Great, interest rates are high. I would assume that's coming down. Insurance liability is up this year. Do we make those adjustments? And Kathy, what I think I just heard you say is you're not making them individually. You're just making
Not
them
this year. Not
you're
this
just
year.
making them into a big thing.
Because if IMRF continues to go down, that has been the trend. So I didn't adjust it this year.
Okay.
I didn't adjust it this year. But yeah, it is a concern. To me, the fund that is more of a concern is the FICA Social Security Fund, especially as salaries go up.
I am totally in agreement with you.
Right.
And I'm totally in agreement that the funds that we're adjusting have ginormous reserves, and it is appropriate because they vacillate so much in price that I mean, I'm just understanding.
Right,
I'm
but
not-
if you take a look, just on the special reserve packet, the very first fund, special revenue fund, is insurance liability, and you'll see that we have a property tax levy of 6.4 million. We have a small miscellaneous reimbursement of 49,000. We have investment income budgeted of 241. And then we're utilizing 442,000 of fund balance and we have a little insurance recovery amount budgeted in order to balance our budget for that fund. And, you know, with investment income, this is a forecast, you know, who knows what's going to come in with interest, right?
This would be one of the slides that I would love to see. If it has its own levy, add another column to
Okay.
this with a little thing there. And again,
I
you
can do
get
that
it all
for
because you
Monday.
deal with it.
I can do that for Monday.
Yeah, us, we're like catching up to you, trying to understand a little bit more. So,
All right.
so appreciated.
We'll present that
Takes
at,
me 2 or 3 times, exactly.
we'll present that at the next board meeting.
no,
Yeah. Okay.
So that is the end of my budget presentation. I do have one more thing, but did anybody have any other questions on the budget presentation?
All right. Everybody's fine with that so far? Yes? Okay.
So the one other thing that I was going to add, so last week at Finance gave the presentation about the moving some of the RTA sales tax revenue from transportation to the general fund to help balance the general fund, and then backfilling transportation by increasing the motor fuel tax. And those 2 resolutions were not passed on and the budget was adjusted. And now they're back on the agenda. It was pointed out to me, and I just thought I would share this as a point of information. I did not do a study. I did not do research. But somebody at the county who used to work for BP said, you do realize that that the price of gas is really developed by a multitude of factors. It's the price of crude oil, it is taxes and some other things. And so I do have a website. Again, this is just for informational purposes only. This is gasbuddy.com. Every day they update. And so that purple line right down the middle is basically like Randall and 31. And it's fascinating because purple means a lower price. So, and those of us who live on the western part of King County would know this, that the gas costs more if you're not going up and down Randall Road. But DuPage having the higher, they have the 9 cent per gallon. It's not that much different than the western half of King County. And I'm sure a lot of people here know that's, you know, one of the reasons why Costco gas is cheap, because they're pushing the cost off on other items that you're buying at the store. So this was just a point of information. And if you drill down into this, it actually, this is a great website. It shows you the different prices at all the different gas stations, and it's all over the board. Some are higher, some are lower. And it changes every day because they need to sell gas. So for what it's worth. For what somebody reached out to me afterwards and said, you know, I don't know if you want to present that information. So
If I may, following up on that, here's some other information that we received from the finance team by one of our staff. And I'll just read this one paragraph that I saw last night, which I thought was very interesting, which I asked Kathy just to put this on. As I mentioned, I worked on a team that divested all the gas station properties for one of the big oil companies early in my career. But this occurred with all the big oil companies. All the properties were sold off to franchises to increase their earnings, the oil companies, reduce their liability, and create a new business model in big oil's favor. Per the jobbers, those are the individuals who bought the companies, the gas stations. Per the jobbers contract, they are only allowed a small margin per a gallon of gas, average 10 cents a gallon. That's what everyone gets who owns a gas station. That's their profit. If they charge more, they risk losing their contract rights to buy from other from the refiner, then they are stuck with the asset and liability like remediation from the tanks, etc. In turn, most of their margin comes from the convenience store sales. So they must stay competitively priced with the gas to generate foot traffic. I myself witnessed no change in gas prices when DuPage County doubled its local gas tax and Will County initiated a gas tax. In fact, sometimes DuPage County had cheaper gas than Will County. So it's really their profit margin. The reason I'm bringing this up, their profit margin is not made at the gas tank, which we just saw was pretty competitive. It truly is when you go in and buy something at their convenience store, you know, some soda, some chips or whatever it is that you may decide to buy. So that's how they are making their money. So I think what's important is we drill down on this and just at understanding if this local motor fuel tax, and the reason I put it on this is just so that it can be referenced, not necessarily voted upon, but simply referenced, that if it's something that you may want to consider, we could potentially get $6 million back into the general fund, relieving having to take $6 million from the reserves, but making sure 100% that transportation is completely reimbursed, made whole again, so that they wouldn't be losing money because transportation, we have a growing county. We need road improvements. That's something that we are all very excited about, to be able to have good roads, good bridges, safe roads, bicycle paths, which I think we've all asked for, which comes out of their fund. Riding cane with their growing senior population, veteran population, disabled population requires that also for workforce. They bring that in as well. So it would be made whole and they would not have any decrease in their revenue. So it's a switch at no additional cost to our taxpayers.
Bates here. You said that property taxes were budgeted to go up 2.4 million. Can you tell me what percentage that is in an
That's
increase?
basically that's if you start with a 3%, and then you get to, once you add in the new property, it's the 4%. That's middle column.
3%, but including new, it's 4%.
Yeah, but you start with that 3.2.
Okay.
Because I picked the number, I picked the dollar amount and then backed into the percent to try to keep it under 5.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll go on. One of the other things I'd like to share is that we're talking about two opportunities. One puts the burden on our property owners. As you can see by the slide, the poster right behind me, 76% of this levy, property tax levy, is paid for by our homeowners, who we've heard are all stressed out. Not by us, but by all the other taxing districts. So it's not Kane County who stressed them out. It's everybody else, but cumulatively, oh my gosh, we all feel that pain. We have the commercial, which is low. And then we have industrial, which is 9. So this is what is equally shared. The other opportunity is shared for not only just Kane County residents, but anybody who comes in here to Kane County. It's truly a user tax. And the one gas station on Highway 90 in Hampshire called Love's is our highest income earner. We take more money from that gas station in the current, no matter what we do, the motor fuel tax. We take more money from that. That is an income earner, as well as the area in Aurora that's by the Premium Outlet Mall. And most of those people who come through that area, especially during the holiday season for the one in Aurora, are visitors here who are going shopping. So those are our 2 prime income earners for motor fuel tax. So it's a shared user resource rather than having to deal with specific people who own property here in Kane County. And that's, I see smiles back there, but that is the gospel truth. Do we levy additional taxes on people who live here, or do we share resources and the availability with people who come by, who visit Kane County, who take part in Kane County's activities, stores, visiting family, or just traveling on the highway? Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, so we have new business. Is there, before we go on, I'm sorry, is there any old business that needs to be presented? None? Is there any additional new business besides the two items that have just been referenced?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Tepe.
Unfortunately, I feel it's important to bring up situations that are occurring around our Kane County treasurer. And there are enough of them that we really need to do something about this. I'm not sure exactly what to do, but let me tell you about what I feel are the 5 key incidents that we should know about. First off, whenever we have a new treasurer, a transition audit is to be completed within 6 months. So that audit should have been done by the end of May or by June 1. My understanding is that audit has not been completed. Okay. Second, to me, it's extremely important that check reconciliation and accounts be edited and that be done. And that check reconciliation is to be done by the finance department in conjunction with the treasurer's department. My understanding is that that has not been done to any extent this year. That means millions of dollars in transactions have not been reconciled. Third, we know about the banking relationship where the bank has fired us. Okay. And anytime I've talked to a bank executive about this, they haven't waved it off as though that bank was trying to protect its profits. They say that the security and key things around the banking laws are the only reasons that a bank would fire us. And any new bank would have those same concerns. Fourth, it's come to my attention that a police report has been filed about $11.2 million that ended up available to an ex-employee through that employee's accounts. And that employee filed a police report to protect themselves to make sure that they couldn't be accused of taking care of that. That shows me that there are serious reasons to think about controls and security associated with our money. And fifth, and this one I've only heard rumors, but bringing it up, is that $400,000 bond has gone missing. Now, I don't think anything bad has happened necessarily. I just think it's been put somewhere where it probably shouldn't be. All of this means that we need to have an external audit of the treasurer, which should be overseen by our finance committee and by our auditor. And I think particularly with the police report, it's extremely difficult for the state's attorney to serve 2 masters. And I think the state's attorney should be contacted in regard to us having a separate attorney for the board. So all of this is disconcerting. All of this has been waved off. If we're just 1 or 2 items, I wouldn't bring it to the attention of the board, but these 5 items to me show a real serious issue of controls and security exists.
And whether they actually are key issues or not, you know, the propriety aspect of things is we ought to make damn sure that our house is in order. And I think it's up to the board to get involved.
How do we get involved?
All right. So there's been a request for an external audit and having the board represented with their own attorney. The state's attorney, Jamie Mosser, can only give permission for the second item. The external audit, I am unaware how to proceed with that. That has never been.
These are agenda items, so they could be brought up.
Microphone.
Sorry. These Shepro, these are brought up under new business. They are discussion items only. There's no action that could be taken today on either of those items.
Absolutely. I will, since they have been brought up at this meeting, I will talk to Mr. Frank. I will research on the extent and how we proceed with the potential of having an external audit done and bring that information as soon as I'm able to get the information on the procedure and then bring it up to you for your decision and discussion. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, with all due respect, what I thought I heard was that the Finance Committee may have some homework to do in conjunction with the treasurer to make available some information. I don't know that that's happened. I don't know that that was the direction. I don't know if that's what the finance is supposed to be doing on a monthly basis. You know, maybe that refresher is just right there before we go spending quantities of money to make that happen. I would think we would want to just simply make sure the left hand and the right hand are talking.
Absolutely.
It's just my suggestion.
Yeah, oh, yes, please.
Shepro again. I think because the rules of.
No.
Oh. Well, I wasn't green enough. I think because the rules of order provide different committees with different jurisdiction, I would suggest that Mr. Frank and our colleagues look into which of those questions should go where, rather than try to figure that out on the fly, this morning. Some items would be oversight for one committee, others would be finance, and I would suggest that we look into that.
All right. Thank you for that counsel.
Madam Chair Gums.
Yes, Ms. Gums.
Just piggybacking on what Mr. Shepro said, so going forward, the committee chairs should be navigating these questions.
Oh,
once identified, I mean, there are two questions posed. Once identified by our state's attorney, the committee chairs should be handling that.
Yes, Mr. Frank, yes.
Frank SAO. The normal course of order for these kind of motions would be to start in a standing committee. Obviously, chairs, Madam Chair has authority to bring it up at different meetings. It's really up to you guys on the procedure for which way you want to go about that. We can help you with the proper procedure for each direction you may want to go with it. I will tell you that the decision between whether there's a conflict and whether my office can handle the issue or if an outside counsel is left to the discretion of the state's attorney, and is not left to the board. So for all intents and purposes, if you guys want to take the issue up, feel free, but you have no authority to mandate that unless you want to go the route of seeking review by judiciary after the state's attorney makes a ruling on that front. In regards to the secondary issue, I agree with my colleague, Mr. Shepro, that finance seems to be the place where that would start unless certain chairs want to start it somewhere else. But that is a discussion you all can have. And we can get into it at that time. But again, since this was brought up under new business, no action can be taken about it today.
Mhm. Correct, correct.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Any other questions on this? So we will confer and get back to all of you to let you know next steps on this, these points that were brought up.
Madam Chair, for
Yes,
new
Mr.
business.
Shepherd.
I don't see the resolution that I mean, you discussed for Scott. Is it here or does it go to?
It will be here. It will be here,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Yes. Yes. Not to worry.
Which resolution?
It's just be handed out. We can present that now, because it is of there is a resolution that is being passed out to you right now, that references Scott Berger, who is the Director of the Office of Community Reinvestment. Little background on this. Mr. Berger did come up with, as you remember, with a resolution that was presented. However, it is the jurisdiction of this committee, the Executive Committee, to make that recommendation. A director of an office cannot make their own individual recommendation. It has to be brought forward by the Executive Committee.
This on agenda?
This is not on, this is not agenda. This is.
Point of
just-
information.
Yes.
I was under the understanding at our last county board meeting that this was on the agenda originally. It passed executive, but because of a parliamentary procedure, it went to county board, and at county board, we were told it needed to come back to executive.
Correct.
So we had discussed this. This had to do with the restructuring, I believe, of the Office of Community Reinvestment. And as part of that restructuring, there was a salary increase to employees and to the director.
Correct.
So I was under the impression it was going to be back on the agenda as under old business because it was kind of reverted back to executive committee because of that parliamentary error. So I'm not sure why it's new business, but I'm also upset that we can't discuss it today because we were under the understanding and impression that because of the parliamentary procedure order error, based on the state's attorney's advice, that this would just be coming back to us under old business and to be discussed. So,
Well, we can, well, since new business, all right, we can bring it back into old business. I'll bring it back into old business, if I may, if there's no other new business. So,
We can't vote on this if it's.
all right, so what's going to happen is that, let me give you, if I may, a little explanation. All of the salaries have been reviewed for all the directors by both the department heads, by the committee chairs, as well as myself through recommendation. We had a budget in mind. Those numbers were presented. We're within the budget. We're under old business right now. And Mr. Berger's was presented with all of that. That now was going to be presented as part of the budget going forward at the December board meeting, not November, not next week's, but the following week, because of going through executive committee has the opportunity to present all of this. But Mr. Berger wanted his done a little bit sooner. It has nothing to do with the reconstruction of his office. This is simply about his salary only. That's it. My understanding, just about his salary. So I'm presenting this now to you with moving it forward to the board meeting where you can suspend the order for the working order for the executive committee, suspend that and take a vote on this at next week's board meeting, if you so choose. So Mr. Berger will be awarded his increase because of the concern of all of this restructuring. This is the process that has been requested, and we're going to be moving this forward. So this is the information. It's up to no discussion. We can discuss it next week if you would approve this particular compensation increase. And the rest will be brought forward to you in December. But it is not effective until the beginning of the new fiscal year.
Madam Chair, if I have a question,
Yes.
if
Oh,
I
Ms.
can.
Green.
I'm really disappointed the way you've handled this. I think it was disrespectful to not let your executive directors know the process before this was brought forward. I'm under the understanding that nobody knew what your process was or is until right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that. When we were,
What was the process? I'm sorry, what
your
process?
process of reviewing executive director salaries should be, it's
in 2-48.
no, but it should be communicated to your executive directors, madam. You're doing things on your own without advising your directors. Whether or not this is the correct process or not, it should be transparent. And last month, we weren't discussing that 2-48. We discussed the parliamentary error when Mr. Williams introduced this resolution. That was the error that was discussed, and that was the reason it was brought back. I don't think it's fair for you to single out one executive director rather the other, because I think Mr. Berger would have been fine waiting until December if he had been told that was the correct
Ms. Molina, he
advice.
was, no, you're,
Well,
you know, he
well,
was.
I'm gonna stop you there because I don't wanna have anything to do with our HR rules, but from my understanding, he wasn't, and I think I'm not the only chairperson here that he spoke to, and he said he wasn't in agreement with, so I'll stop there. I think you've done a disservice to our executive directors.
I feel that you may not have all of the information, and I appreciate it. And
Well,
we
that's my
talked-
point, Madam Chair, is that we don't have all the information.
We talked, I talked specifically to him. I had a lengthy conversation at a meeting he was at. I told him I would call him on that day, which I did in the afternoon.
I sent you an email yesterday. You didn't respond to it. Mr. Berger sent an email on Friday. It wasn't responded to. This resolution he created himself because he wasn't told what the guidelines were.
So, point of order at this point, this is something that was passed last week. This is a organization that we have that's all funded by grants.
Correct.
They have to go over their own money. The whole purpose of this was to do this all at one time.
Correct.
And of course, we was told that it was a point of order made that this had to be brung out separately, but it was part of the whole package that was presented and passed by the county board last month.
Correct.
So hopefully the idea today is to go ahead and present this and get this part over with. Therefore, his department is complete and we move forward. I am concerned about what the process is. I think that's something we got to work on. He was told he couldn't do it himself, but yet he did his own research on this and did run it past HR. And somewhere along the line, it sounds like you saw it. But at this point right now, can we just get this over with?
I thank you. I would agree. So here's the information. Mr. Berger is going to be, we're going to ask the board to approve an increase in his compensation to $137,000. We cannot take a vote on it today. We can confer on it and take a look at it next week at the full board. If there's any conversation, concerns about this, it can be represented through executive committee next December, the upcoming month, and then brought back to the full board at that time. As far as why I have the microphone, as far as all of the other executive directors, they were all brought forward as part of an external equity study. I went over with each one of you committee chairs to go over their compensation. It was a discussion. I asked each one of the committee chairs, including you, Ms. Molina, what you thought was an appropriate salary for an increase.
And that was after our executive committee meeting last month. And I still haven't received anything in writing as to what the process is after our conversation.
Well, the process was, we talked through the process.
I like things in writing, Madam Chair, because sometimes when people hear things are different than what people say.
All of you, if I have all of the information that I've given to Ms. Labrillo and to Kathy Hopkinson for presentation in the budget. I will send you confirmation. that our conversation was held intact, and that those changes were reviewed, and mostly within a very gentle adjustment to make sure that we're in budget, were accepted and honored.
I think, Madam Chair, Shepro.
Speak up.
Sorry, my voice is not at the usual
Okay.
level.
Well, then get your mic
All right,
closer.
is that better? I'm not sure I understand what the purpose is of handing out this resolution today. My understanding is, as Ms. Molina said, that the county board had sent this back to executive committee. But for whatever reason, it's not on the agenda. And the resolution is just being handed out. I'm not sure that handing it out satisfies any jurisdictional requirement that this committee act on it. So I'm not sure what will go to the full board at the next meeting. Or is it your intention to have this added to the agenda for the board meeting?
That is correct. I sought counsel from Mr. Frank, asking him what my steps were to do this. And this is what, under the advice of Mr. Frank, was that I handed out to you without discussion, for just presentation, where we can move it forward to the full board, where you can choose as a full board to suspend the rules of order and then go ahead of the executive committee and then vote to approve. So I'm following the direction of our state's attorney. Yes, sir.
SEO Frank, we were advised Monday morning, which would have been within the 48 hours, that the resolution was forwarded to the staff at a time before basically after a time that they had already issued the agenda. Once that happens, when you're within the 48 hours, you cannot make those changes to include it. So the advice was given that if somebody would like to have it in the quickest possible manner, the only way to do that would be to bring it up at the next county board. And you would have to suspend the rules for purposes of having the county board approve it as opposed to the executive. That is a path forward legally that you can do. There are other ways to do it as well, but this would be, in our opinion, the fastest way to do it legally.
What point of order or question? Are you saying that the vote to suspend the rules should happen in this meeting or in the full county board meeting?
SEO Frank, it would be at the county board meeting. You'd be suspending the rules that mandates that the executive handle it.
I think the point of Mr. Frank's advice, which I agree with, is that it would have to take place. And so there is nothing this committee could do, whether it's a vote, forwarding it, or anything else. It simply will be something that will be presented to the full board to take whatever action is legally permissible at that time.
Point of
Good question,
information.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Davis asking, is the first full pay period of fiscal year 24 match what the rest of the directors?
Correct.
That would be the starting time for all of them then, right?
Exactly, for all of our salaries.
Okay.
For everybody.
And I have a point of information. SAO Frank, executive director salaries have to come through the executive committee first to be approved. Because it's not being approved by this committee, which was the problem last month. And last month we were told it needed to be approved by this committee in order to go forward. Are you now telling us that now we can suspend the rules at our regular county board meeting, which we weren't given an option to last month?
So, SEO Frank, so we were specifically requested to look into this problem. If you recall at the last meeting, this was done in the middle of the meeting. So our opportunity we did not have an opportunity to look into see if that's even a possibility, nor were we asked to. At this point, we were asked to look into opportunities. And one of the things that we found was that you could in fact suspend the rules as it pertains to ones that you've already set for yourselves. So that is where we are.
Thank you.
So as a follow-up, pending board approval next week, Mr. Berger will not be included in the resolution that you're going to be seeing at the next or the next executive meeting, because perhaps his compensation increase would already been approved by the full board, which will start again on December 1st with the fiscal year, once the budget is passed. So we are honoring his request. All right, any other questions on this? No, thank you. All right. With nothing else, and I believe there'll be no action on the new business items at this point. I'm not hearing any. Any other A and B? Those have been discussed. Any action on that? No? Then let's go to our preliminary county board agenda. Mr. Caius is not here. Who is going to speak on his behalf? Mr. Tebby, will you be speaking on his behalf?
Sorry, Madam.
Well,
Or would you?
point of order, Doherty.
Yes, Mr. Doherty.
There are two resolutions under new business.
Mr. Doherty, you're not a member of this committee.
I know. I just have a question. I have a question. I'm a board member. I am allowed to ask questions.
Yes, but you said point of order.
Okay, sorry. Question. It's possible to have resolutions on the agenda and not vote on them?
It's
If no one's made a motion, then I guess they're,
Mr. Frank.
SAO Frank, yes, you can, as long as you've complied with OMA. In the situation of the one right before, because it was not on the agenda, because it wasn't forwarded or if wasn't put on by somebody within the 48 hours, that's why you cannot take a vote. The key here is that you're trying to comply with OMA as opposed to a situation where if it's on the agenda, you have complied with OMA.
So you don't have to vote on resolutions that are actually on the agenda?
If somebody moves in seconds and there's an opportunity for discussion, then yes, you would vote on it if there was a motion in a second.
Okay, thank you.
Gums will move the gas tax.
All right, thank you. Is there a second on the gas tax, motor fuel tax, local motor fuel tax?
Also second.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not on this committee, but I did have a couple of questions about this resolution and the next one. Number one, I just wanted to make sure where these were both voted down in the Finance Committee by, I believe the vote was 5-1. Was it your decision to put these on the agenda?
Yes, it was. And the reason why is that after we had that discussion, Mr. Sanchez, who was sitting over there, said that he'd like to move these items to the larger committee for their review, because he felt that the committee was very small with finance, with you being gone, and although you're coming in and out, and Mr. Berman as well, and we got your vote, but that he wanted the more voices to this. So I thought it would be appropriate putting it under new business in case there needed to be to honor that request, additional discussion.
So was this put on the agenda to discuss or to vote on?
Right now, to honor Mr. Sanchez, it was to discuss, but it certainly can be brought up if a board so chooses.
So is a motion to discuss or to discuss and possibly approve?
To me, it was discuss and possibly approve or not.
So it's on the agenda to vote on?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. You know, I'd just like to make a couple of points.
But remember, it has to pass through. If no one, you wanted to say no, we understand, you know, we appreciate having it there, but we choose not to even recognize it. Absolutely.
And once again, that
motion was just made.
But it was made to discuss.
To discuss.
And
It should ask.
To discuss and vote. I'll
Okay.
modify my
Discussion and
motion.
possibly approve.
Correct.
Right.
Fine. You know, I guess I have a couple concerns about these two resolutions. Number one, I already stated the vote at the Finance Committee and everyone voted on it except one person. So I understand Mr. Sanchez wanting additional people to consider it, possibly for discussion. I don't know if it was discussion vote or not. But, you know, there were a few things that were brought up that I thought were of interest that the executive committee should consider if they decide to vote on it. And number one is the motor fuel tax increase from 4.7 cents per gallon to 8 cents per gallon is a 70% increase in the county motor fuel tax for all the people that buy gas in King County. I realize there are people outside of King County, but most of the gas purchased will be by residents of King County. And I think Madam Chair had mentioned that that equated to about 60 cents a week. And if you take that by 52 weeks, that's over $30 a year, which is higher than the property tax increase. At our transportation meeting, Anita Lewis had eloquently discussed and brought up the fact that our Metro representative, Mr. McMahon, was going to increase rates about $10 in her district to commute in and out of Chicago. And she said, quite honestly, my people cannot afford that. And she respectfully stated her opinion and gave her reasons for it. Both Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Caius have voted very professionally and very accurately that they were against any kind of toll on the Long Meadow Parkway because of the burden on the people that would use it. The point that I want to make about the motor fuel tax is this really isn't an option for people. If you have a car and drive a car unless it's an electric vehicle, you're going to have to pay the additional tax. And I think that's going to equate to somewhere between $30 and $50 a year. That on top of the approved property tax increase is substantial enough that I think our taxpayers are being burdened in a way that is going to create a hardship for many people. So I just wanted to state my personal opinion that moving the RTA sales tax to the general fund and then increasing the motor fuel tax from 4.7 cents per gallon to 8 cents per gallon, I think will put a burden on our taxpayers that is unnecessary. Even though I'm not on this committee and can't vote, when it does go to the board, I will be voting against it. And I just wanted to make those points.
Yes. Lewis.
Anita Lewis. So I represent District 3 in Aurora, Montgomery. And it was mentioned when we were discussing this last time that it equates to, 60 cents a week, $2.40 a month, $30 a year. As I was talking to my constituents, that's not true because I have a lot of people in my area that are snowplow drivers. They are landscapers. They have trucks that they have to use for their business. And they put way more than one tank of gas in every week. And they are very concerned about the motor fuel tax. Most of them have said, yeah, we were okay with the property tax because it's a very small amount. It's average $12 per year, but they're very, very concerned about the motor fuel tax. So therefore, I will be voting no on it.
Madam Chair, as Ms. Juby spoke in one of our former meetings, as nobody spoke in our former meetings, for myself, I believe a motor fuel tax to be a regressive tax. And one thing that has been brought to my attention recently is that it's especially regressive in light of work from home, because the higher paid people, the white collar workers, have a much better chance to work from home and than somebody who is, for example, running a snowplow or a landscaping business or has to be somewhere on Randall Road painting the stripes like they were today. So I don't approve of the increase in the motor fuel tax.
So one of the things that I hope, and please, all discussion is welcome, but we just shared with you data that proves or that shows indicates that even if a tax goes up for this particular tax, the price of that gasoline does not go up. That's what those documents were just showing you.
I got a bridge to sell.
Yes.
Davis speaking, Mr. Leonard expressed it very well. We had a lot of this conversation of transportation. And I am on this committee, so I will be voting on it today, Bill. I guess I've been saying it all along in every meeting we've had lately. Take the new growth, but otherwise, no, let's stay off the levy. Let's stay off the gas pump. We should be talking about the referendum question about a 1/4% sales tax that would indeed be shared by people from outside the county. And 25 cents on $100 purchase, I think is a lot closer to being pain-free for people. And it generates multiple times the amount that we've talked about in 5, 6 times, 15 times. Thank you, Bill.
Actually 17.
Much more than we would realize from the CPI increase or the motor fuel tax combined. And yes, there's a delay to that because it's sales tax. We wouldn't see it for a year, but we've also already talked about, changing our rules from 180 days to 90 days, which leads to $53 million available. The treasurer's office has, through whatever means, I'm not exactly sure, more accurate reporting or better interest rates, right? But I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million of interest that we didn't know that we had before. So I've preached over many years being careful about using reserves and one-time money for operational expense, and I'm not changing my tune on that. But we have an opportunity here to cover the difference without going to the levy, without going to the gas pump, and getting the voters a chance to weigh in on a sales tax referendum that I think really does make sense and is far more lucrative. And by the time we get there next year, we could be collecting enough to solve a lot of the problems that we have right now.
Madam Chair.
That's more of the discussion I'd like to see. And one other question is, if we vote on this today and it's no, are we going to see it again at full board, or will that be the end of it?
The executive committee has the final presentation that brings forward to the full board for their consideration, sir. Hold on, Ms. Bates, Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sanchez here. I just wanted to clarify that I didn't ask for this to be put back on, but originally in finance, I did suggest that we forward it to the board, have discussions during finance, have discussions during executive to help us gather our thoughts and then allow the full board to make a decision. I voted against the gas tax at finance and did not expect to see it on this agenda. Thank you.
So if I can just, Mr. Tebby just has some clarity to the countywide sales tax. We will be presenting information about that in December. I've asked for information to be gathered and to be studied once again. It takes a little bit of time to be able to put the proper presentation to you. That'll be happened at the committee of a whole. And that will also include the mandated service study, which was asked to get you an update on that. So we've already done some work on that as well. So those 2 items will be presented to you. As far as when that potentially would be available to you or to this county, if it is passed by your constituents, it'll be in probably June of 25. If it is passed, you'll start to see potential revenue from that. That is, and we are investigating right now. It is restricted funding. It does not go into the general fund. My question is, does it relieve the general fund from supporting initiatives, let's say public safety, or is it in addition to additional programs that will help support public safety? So those are the questions that we have to have answered. And then hopefully in December, we can move it forward to the board, and you can decide whether or not you'd like to start giving permission to yourselves to start investigating this, to move this forward. Mr. Linder. Yes, sir. Mr. Linder, we can't hear you. You're muted.
You hear me now?
Yes, you're fine now. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I'm concerned about the order of the day here. This is going to be an awfully long meeting. We've been talking for about 12 minutes on a resolution that hasn't been moved and seconded, and then we got off on another topic. Can we?
It has been
to the
moved and
agenda?
seconded. It has been moved and seconded.
Oh, boy, I
So
missed that.
10A is so moved and seconded. by,
Okay, I missed that.
Gums and,
Sorry.
Lewis.
Would you like to call the vote?
Madam Chair Gums, I have a question.
We've got two more questions right now. Mr. Linder, you're fine. Mr. Tepe?
Madam Chair, as you know, I'm not always going to talk about things that are the most popular. I feel that the county needs additional revenue. As many of you know, I've got a pretty extensive email list, and I sent out this information to my email list, and the responses I got back about taxation were not so much, gee, don't do this tax or don't do that tax. It's how are you going to tax? So if I turn the question around, I think it's been presented extremely well by our financial director that we will need additional revenue in the near future. Okay, can we get by for another year? Yeah, but we're just kicking the can down the road again. And I know I used to say that a lot a few years ago, but I've refrained from using that particular phrase until today. We need additional revenue. Where's it going to come from? Okay, to me, these two resolutions are mirrored because one only gives revenue to the transportation department, and the second one allocates some of the revenue for the transportation department back to the general fund. Okay, but we need additional revenue. These are the only things that we can actually control in addition to the CPI increase. These are the only things that we can control. If we wait for a sales tax increase, it'll be not only a couple of years from now, okay, but it'll be, does it pass or not? So in my mind, we need additional revenue. Where's it going to come from? These are our only choices. And if we're afraid to face the whole issues and the hard issues, shame on us.
Thank you.
I think it'd be a good idea to call the question.
Wait, Ms. Juby had her hand up, one more, and then we can call the question. Yes, Ms. Juby.
Leslie for the day.
Sorry,
I'm
I've done that
Gums.
before.
Um,
My apologies.
no, that's okay. So as you all know, I've been pretty vocal about my positions on the necessity for revenue increases. I think collectively we can all agree on that. What's been put forth today, I've had conversations with almost all of you. The CPI capturing the existing and the new growth for me is extremely important. It lets our staff know, which are paying attention to us, that we are moving, that we are going to appreciate them in a way that they have not yet been appreciated in 13 years. Our gallery has indicated that they want us to decrease taxes or not raise taxes at all. And I did make many notes about those things. I do understand that. A lot of you pointed out that there's increases in the cost of bread and goods that we purchase. There's an increase in cost of utilities. There's an increase of cost for many things. We incur those as well, as do our employees. So when I have this conversation about needing to increase revenue, it is specific to those people that work for us that we can carry on and make sure that they can do their job in Kane County and that we can treat them well. That is part of why I want to capture some new revenue. I think it's essential. I will be voting no on the gas tax. Please don't clap. It's just taking up our time. I appreciate you, but that's something that I haven't done before. But I want you to know that we have been listening. We are paying attention. But I am pretty firm on that CPI capture because I think that going forward, we have to show that we are willing to do something. And our prices are going up too. And I know it's hard to hear, but it's not untrue. It is true. So how do we express to our employees that we care about them and provide the services? I mean, they're going to leave us if we don't express that to them. 13 years is a long time. There are people that are making 40% less in our county and they go up. I mean, you guys have been here consistently and I thank you for that, but that narrative hasn't changed either. And they're paying attention to us as well. They want to make sure that we respect and understand them. So for me, it's important to capture that growth because if we do nothing again for the next year and say we'll have a conversation about it the following year, then I'm going on 4 years of having that exact same conversation and nothing's been captured. So I'm done.
Yes, thank you.
Bates speaking. I don't know why we are discussing the CPI because it's not on the agenda under new business. It's motor fuel tax or RTA tax, sales tax allocation. I don't understand why the CPI increase isn't, why there isn't a number C here.
It's already been
Discuss the
approved. It's already been
CPI.
approved.
Well,
I was
these
already
have
approved
already
through
been
finance.
not approved, but they were still on the agenda and maybe we should be discussing the CPI tax as well and changing the amount because as I see it, it's right now.
Excuse
at-
me, well, Ms.
Included effectively within the resolution under finance to.
Correct. That's correct. It's already in there.
Well, if we
As
can have A and B, which were already voted down, I would like to rediscuss the CPI tax.
Well, when we get to that point. So I think we're ready for the vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, no.
Bates,
Bates, no.
I'm sorry, Davis,
Davis, no.
Ord,
Or no.
Gums,
No.
Kenyon,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Linder. Mr. Linder. Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Strathman, Surges,
Surges, no.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Tepe, yes.
Oh.
All righty.
It fails 11-1.
May I please have a motion and a second to, well, we shouldn't do one without the other, to amend the county financial policies regarding the RTA sales tax allocation.
Gums will move.
Bates, second.
8 seconds. Any discussion on this item?
Only that Davis will be voting no.
Well, we'll get your chance.
We couldn't do one without the other. So I would agree with you, sir. It would die. So, but we already have a motion and a second. So let's, with no other
Hang on.
discussion,
Who motioned
let's
that?
take the obligatory no or vote.
Motion both?
Please call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, no.
Bates,
Bates, no.
Davis,
Davis, no.
Ford,
Ford, no.
Gums,
No.
Kenyon,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Linder,
Linder, no.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Strathman, Surges,
No.
Tepe.
Tepe, no.
It failed.
Okay, it fails. All right.
Oh my God.
All right. Let's go back to our consent agenda now. Let's move this forward. Mr. Tebby, you'll be speaking for Mr. Caius, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under administration, we have one resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase two Ford cab trucks and chassis for the Kane County Division of Transportation. And I move for this resolution.
Comes will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Voice vote, please.
Roll call.
Yeah, roll
Sorry.
call.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman, I'm sorry, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder. Mr. Linder. Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman, Surges,
Left the room.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Mr. Kenyon,
From the Agricultural Committee, we have a resolution approving 6 applicants for protection through the Kane County Farmland Protection Program. We have merely vetted them and they're approved. We don't have enough money to do it, but you'll consider it to complete it. You'll consider the completion at another meeting. This was the first meeting in about 7 years, so.
correct. It was a wonderful group of people.
Davis, second.
Any conversation, discussion on this item? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Sorry.
Surges,
I'm sorry, I had stepped out. I'm abstained.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Passes. Mr. Ford.
Meeting at 7. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an ordinance proposing establishment of Woodgate Estate Subdivision Special Service Area. Special Area number SW56 of Kane County, Illinois, and a levy of taxes for the purpose of paying the cost of providing special services in and for such area. I make the motion. Can you move second this motion?
Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman, Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
All
Passes.
right. Mr. Berman is not here. And Mr. Leonard, acting is not here. So Mr. Tepe.
Madam Chair, there are 59 items that we voted on. Am I required to read all of them or can we just vote on all 59?
No, you have to go through one at a time.
Is there an individual vote for each one, or do you just read them all and vote one vote?
I'll read them all. Oh, yes, I'll let our parliamentarian.
Levy ordinances, each of them, sorry. With
Microphone,
respect to the
please.
levy ordinances, they should all be read and then voted on individually. With respect to, so the other items, I believe they could be read aloud and aggregated with a single roll call.
Okay, so that is item number 1 through 22. 22, correct.
He's not taking final action on any of these. They're merely passing them on to the full board.
So did everybody hear that? You are simply recommending these are all to be passed on to the full board for their final consideration, and that these,
Having said that, I guess I would note that in prior times, I believe we've said that every financial thing must have a roll call, even at this committee. And so I would defer to precedent in that regard.
Roll call on every item.
Every item. personally don't agree with it, but that's been the state's attorney's office position for 20 years.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start off with items 1 through 22. And then you can take a water break and then move forward.
1 through 22, one at a time.
One at a time, please.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the 24 fiscal year draft budget to be placed on public display?
Ken, I'll move it.
Thank you.
Gumsel seconds.
Any discussion?
Yes, Ms. Bates.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you?
Different meeting. In light of the will of this committee and the finance committee to not raise the motor fuel tax and the reapportionment of the RTA tax, I would like to discuss if we need to have a CPI increase of larger than what is being proposed in the budget.
Okay, so you
Right
are,
now, according to Ms. Hopkinson, the increase is what was it? Oops, I wrote it down someplace else. Was a 3%. Are we allowed to take a larger budget increase than that?
3.31, I think it is.
3.2, yeah.
Ms. Hopkinson?
I believe that's under item 3, is it not?
Oh, maybe.
Yes, I mean, you could take it higher if you so choose.
The
I don't
levy
remember
is not
seeing.
part of,
It's in the general fund levy.
Number 3. Right, it's under 3.
It's in there.
So it's under
Number
item
3.
3.
Okay, thank you. Then, never mind.
this is number 1, correct?
Uh-huh.
Number 1.
This is just to approve placing the draft budget on public display.
It's 60.
Thank you.
Tax levy for the general fund is number 3.
If, I think what was done at the finance, we took items 1 and 2 and moved them to the end.
Places you take it out, it's gonna really make.
Oh, what's 1 and 2 here was moved to the end.
Because the levy is in the general fund and the Veterans Commission, but we can't do anything about the Veterans Commission. Or the levy increase, I should say. These are all levies, but the increases are in the general fund and the Veterans Commission fund.
Madam Chair, Gums.
Yes, hold on, Ms. Gums, please. Let me just get my notes caught up. Yes, Ms. Gums.
Just for clarity then, we should in fact be moving, oh, where'd you go? There you are. We should be moving to the end.
And 3.
No, not 3. 1 and 2 should go to the end because all others are relevant to it.
22 is the Crane Road building?
The
That's what was
appropriations.
done at the finance
draft
committee.
budget.
That's
1
what was
and
done
2.
at the finance.
Yes.
SAO Frank, I would largely tell you that number 1, you might want to move to the end because if you do make any changes to the budget, it'll need to be amended. And then if you post something that was later amended would be problematic.
So recommendation from our state's attorney is to move item number 1 to the end, which would bring it 2 up to number 1 and 22 would become number 1.
Or it
Okay,
includes 2, doesn't it? 1 and 2. I mean,
SAO Frank,
well, one's an
you-
ordinance.
what we did in finance was we moved 1 and 2 basically to the end. My recommendation, instead of making this complicated, just table it until the very end. Don't renumber, don't do anything, just
But I'm just
move to number 3 and we'll go on and so forth.
Postpone.
Okay, and then really quick, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Gums. It sounds like to me that we're gonna have discussion, so I would love a short recess to use the washroom.
Okay, what everybody
Way
likes.
ahead of you.
you can go down.
All right, why don't we have recess for 10 minutes? Will that give everybody
Yeah,
enough
so I'll
time?
move to have a recess for 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
I'll see you all at 12:15.
Yeah, kickity kickball.
Since there was no vote, just say without objection. So ordered.
So ordered. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
For everybody online, just wanted to let you know, I will mute the boardroom during this time, but we are still live streaming. So if you do have conversations amongst yourself, they will still be going out to YouTube and saved for the public and everybody to go back and review. If you need me while we're muted, go ahead and use the chat feature in Zoom and I'll try to catch anything that you say. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody, let's reconvene the meeting.
I have to say no, now I gotta vote no. On at least 3 of them.
Have we lost our quorum, gentlemen?
We're gonna, we'll sit down.
No?
No, we've got everybody.
Yeah, you told. Look at the people that jump ship over here.
Oh, good. We've got 2 attorneys. We're fine. All right, I'd like to bring this meeting back to order.
More than that becomes a conspiracy.
Hold on.
What?
We do not have a quorum in the moment, that's for sure.
We have attorneys.
We have attorneys.
Cliff is. 1, 2.
How many?
1, 2, 3.
Calling in?
5,
6.
Yeah.
Cliff left for work.
Ask for permission to be added.
Okay. Yeah, what? We have 7 people.
6, 7, 8, we got a majority.
Well.
No, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We have 9. We have 9. We have 9 in the room. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
But why don't you take a roll anyway?
Yeah, we are, sir. We are, sir. Okay. All right, we are back in session. Let's get down to our business. Clerk, please call the roll to make sure that we have a quorum in the room.
Alan,
Alan present, but not in the.
Bates,
I see.
Berman, Davis, Ford,
I don't think they.
Comes here.
Caius, Kenyon, Lewis,
Lewis here.
Linder,
Linder here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Strathman,
Strathman in the room.
Surges, Tepe,
Steppy here.
Pirog.
I'm here.
1, 2, 3. You have an in-person quorum.
Very good. We have an in-person quorum, so we can begin. We left off with moving items under finance, which Mr. Tepe will be presenting. Items number 1 and 2 to the end of our discussion on the levies.
There was a motion and a second on item 1. May I have those rescinded?
Yes.
So you don't have to rescind it, you're just moving the discussion and the vote to the
Okay,
end.
then we'll move items 1 and 2 to after item number 29. Okay. To later.
To later. And may I suggest the 2 laters after we get done talking about the business of the budget?
Okay.
And then everything else we can talk about separately.
Okay, I will try to keep control, and I know that.
We have a lot of people here who are very engaged with this, so they'll
go
help
to
us out.
Item number 3, may I have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the general fund?
Strathman moves. Comes will second.
Ms. Gums will take second. All right, discussion.
Davis with a question.
Yes, Mr.
So this levy is regarding the general fund. This will include at least a portion of the available CPI. Is that correct?
Let's, Ms. Hopkinson, you may want to stay close. And because you're going to be needed for a while, why don't you come sit so you don't have to stand?
Oh.
We have plenty of chairs available.
Item 3, Shepro, as item 3, I believe, is the resolution as adopted at finance with the, whatever the percent.
3.31, I believe it is.
Right, okay, so that, and then the first 2, which we're going to address later, would include that, which means a yes vote now would be to approve increasing the levy by the 3.13 or whatever the percentage is.
The CPI was 6.5. So any number between 0 and 5 is it picks up some of it. Yeah,
But that's included in it as presented. This has an increase. This is not zero.
it is not zero. It is not
That's
zero.
all I need to know.
It is not zero.
I'll be voting no.
No.
As promised, as I've been saying for a month.
You will. You man of your words. Is there any other discussion on this? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, as with finance, I will be voting yes on this. As I had said previously, I believe the motor fuel tax was going to be very hard on my constituents because, of the jobs that they do. But also talking to my same constituents, the amount of this particular levy, is not going to be as harsh. I think we decided about $12 on a $6,000 tax bill. And it will start to generate some funds that we actually are going to need down the road. So I will be voting yes on it for that reason.
Any other discussion on this item? Yes, Ms. Molina.
Madam Chair, thank you. Again, I will also be voting no on this. I don't believe a property tax increase is appropriate for my constituents at this time. I have the same feeling as Ms. Lewis, other than the fact that our property values have gone up exponentially in the last 9-12 months. And what might have been $12, which some of my constituents can't afford, will now be larger than $12. I talk to my neighbors all the time, and the worst time of the year isn't so much the tax bill, it's the escrow shortage that follows. And generally the escrow shortage is a lot larger than our portion, but I'm not going to do anything to make their lives harder. And I think it's not the time to increase taxes. I would have much preferred to vote for a motor fuel tax because we have a choice where we get to put gas. I can choose to go to DuPage. I can choose to go to Will County. I can choose to go other places. I can check my Gas Buddy app, which is really great. And it tells me where I can find the cheapest gas. I don't get to choose every year where I get to live. And I think when we talk about regressive taxes, property taxes are at the top of the list of being regressive. So I will be voting no on this tax increase this year. Thank you.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Yes, Mr. Tebby.
I'd like to point out that the proposal that was approved by the Finance Department was an increase of 3.21%. Okay, which for the typical homeowner is going to be about $15 a year. Okay.
Anybody else have any discussion on this? Anybody online? No? So are we ready to, well, I have,
Do it.
I'm about ready to call it, but I just have one point of clarification. For Kathleen, if this gets rescinded and it is not approved, then what are your next steps?
I'd have to change the budget
Okay, okay.
by either cutting expenses or using more reserves.
Okay, and so we would be, if it does not get approved, right now, big numbers, we're using about $9 million in reserves. Without this getting approved, this would go up to about $11 million of reserves that we'd be drawing down.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just for clarity, sorry, SAO Frank, just for clarity, if you were to do that, an amendment would need to be made on the budgetary item to account for that.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder? I didn't quite hear you.
SAO
Maybe
Frank,
slower.
just for clarity, if that happens, you will need to amend what will effectively be resolution number 2 to account for that. Otherwise, you have not approved a levy, but had it budgeted under what you did not approve.
Okay, very good. All right, well, I personally agree with Ms. Molina, but let's go forward. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, no.
Ford. Oh, he's gone. Sorry. Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges, are you online? I don't think so. Okay, sorry. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Oh, okay, hold on a second. I think finish up and then we'll go back to Mr. Surges because I think he's we'll have to let him in. We'll have to let him complete the rest of the roll call and then we'll get back to Mr. Surges.
I completed it.
Oh, okay, so we've got,
So, yes.
7 yeses, 4 nos.
all right, Mr. Surges, are you there? Cliff, are you there? No, all right.
May we move on and we can come back if there are technical difficulties, we can come back and record his vote later if he wants.
Okay. Yes.
SAO Frank, that is correct. It just have to be done by consensus.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So it passes 7-4. Is that correct? Okay, very good. Okay,
Resolution number 4, adopting a tax levy for the insurance liability fund. May I have a motion?
I'll move it. Strathman seconds.
discussion? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges, are you online? Tepe,
Yes.
passes.
Okay,
Number 5, may I have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund?
Bates moves.
Gums will
Allen.
second.
Yep, Ms. Gums seconds, thank you. Discussion? None, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davist,
yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
passes.
Very good.
Number 6, may I have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Social Security Fund?
Gums will move.
Allen, move.
Lewis, a second.
Uh,
Take your pick.
Okay. I'll have Miss Allen have it. Clerk, if there's no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
passes.
Number 7, may I have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the County Highway Fund?
Bates moves.
Thank you, Ms. Bates.
Yeah,
Discussion?
Davis, second.
Oh.
Oh,
Davis?
sorry.
Oh,
I'm just trying to.
those electric car drivers are fast.
If there's no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Right.
Strathman, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
passes.
Okay.
Number 8, may I please have a motion
Davis moves.
Strathman seconds.
Linder, second.
adopting a tax levy for the County Bridge Fund? Now,
Davis moves.
I'll second it.
Mr. Kenyon seconds, discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
passes.
Number 9.
Just look right at me as you're reading this next one, just right here.
May I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the county highway matching fund?
Davis moves.
Second, please. And
Pressure's off.
Strathman
Linder, second.
seconds. Strathman seconds. Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
I'm sorry, you cut out, Miss Allen.
Oh, sorry, Allen, I.
Thank
Aye.
you. Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe. This,
3, according to Meatloaf, that's pretty good.
Number
It's not
10,
bad.
may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Kane County Health Fund?
Gums will move.
And then would move it.
Kenyon.
Gums will second.
Ms. Gums seconds. Discussion?
Eh.
Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder. Mr. Linder,
Shoot.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Veterans.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
11, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Veterans
Kenyon.
Commission Fund?
Kenyon moves it.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. Second.
Davis,
Strathman,
second.
Strathman.
Perfect.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder, Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 12, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for Mill Creek Special Service Area?
Gums
Allen,
Move it.
Kenyon.
Kenyon moves, Davis seconds.
Davis, second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 13, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Shirewood Farm Special Service Area?
So moved. Gums will
Strathman
second.
moves,
Gums, second.
Gums will second.
Seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Number 14, may I have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Wildwood West Special Billing Area?
Kenyon would move it.
I was gonna
Kenyon
say, that
moves.
sounds like a gums motion.
Some seconds.
Discussion?
Out by us.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item number 15, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Plank Road Estates Special Billing Area?
Kenyon would move it.
Kenyon moves,
Strathman, seconds.
Strathman seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Are we having fun yet?
Yes.
Any minute now.
Item number 16, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Exposition View Special Billing Area?
Linder moves.
Thank you, Mr.
Linder
Linder.
moves.
Strathman seconds.
Strathman seconds.
All right, discussion. None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman, Tepe.
Tepe, yes. Strathman, yes, too.
Passes.
Passes.
Little coughing. Okay. Item number 17, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Pasadena Drive Special Billing Area?
Strathman moves.
Allen moves.
Strathman moves.
Okay, who?
Allen.
Allen seconds.
Okay, very good. Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates, Davis,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Number 18, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Tamara Dittman Special Billing Area?
Gums will move.
Gums
Strathman
moves.
seconds.
Strathman seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
All righty.
Number 19, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Church Molitor Special Service Area?
Bates moves.
Bates moves. Strathman seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Number 20, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the 45W 185 Plank Road Special Service Area?
Kenyon would move it.
Kenyon moves.
Strathman seconds.
Allen
Strathman seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Number 21, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Boyer Road Special Service Area?
I'll move that.
Kenyon moves.
Strathman seconds.
Strathman seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Number 22, may I please have a motion for a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Crane Road Estates Special Billing Area?
Davis moves.
Davis moves.
Linder, second.
Linder seconds.
Discussion? None. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
All
Passes.
righty. Mr. Tepe, we're back to number 1.
Let's go to number 2.
Number two,
Number two, may I please have a motion for an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2024 annual appropriations and budget?
Alan moves.
Bates moves, Allen seconds.
is there any discussion on this item? You're all exhausted.
Everybody worn out. Okay.
All right. Anybody online? All good? Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, no.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez. Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Steffi, yes.
We have one abstain.
Passes.
Sorry, Sanchez, no.
Sanchez, no. Okay, passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 3.
Okay. Item number one, may I please have a motion for a resolution approving the fiscal year 24 draft budget to be placed on public display?
Strathman will move.
Strathman moves,
Thank you.
Gums will second.
Gums seconds.
Gums. Any discussion on this? None? Clerk, please call the roll then.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, no.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Steffi, yes.
Passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 to 4.
Okay. May I please have a motion to approve items number 23 through 57 of the Finance Committee consent agenda?
I would move that.
Kenyon moves,
Second,
Davis, second.
Davis seconds.
is there any discussion on any of these items? None? All right, clerk, then we can call the roll.
Excuse me, Allen,
Alan, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Steffi, yes.
They pass.
Happy about the fabulous Fox part. Just saying.
I actually, I think that there's, we. we
I'm,
could
I'm
just-
on a roll. Should I do transportation?
Okay, before you go to transportation, I think.
I'm okay, Rick. Go ahead. You,
No, it's your time.
you
to-
team up there and I'll move.
If I may, can I just call out how proud I am of all of you for number 23? Well done all,
Wait a minute,
well
yes.
done all.
Okay, good.
Wait, this one. Oh,
Transportation,
okay. Six, man. Kenny, I burn you outdid me by a mile there. All right,
Follow.
I'll read and move 6 items for you and ask for a second.
I'll move for a second.
I'll second.
Okay. I'm gonna do a second and a third. The first one is intergovernmental agreement with the townships for salt. This helps hold them accountable. It's been kind of a little more of a handshake deal in the past, so this will be a little more official, so that's good. Number 2 is adopt a highway applicants. Great program. Number 3, agreement with GIS for all the services that we get from them, invaluable to us. Number 4, an amendment to an IGA for phase 3 construction of the Doberman Road extension. Number 5 is naming the new highway as Bliss Road. And the aforementioned, there'll be a ribbon cutting on the 16th.
No, I'll be able to sleep now.
They get T.R. Smith out there because he loves a roundabout. And then number 6, establishing a speed limit on said Bliss Road, which 50?
50,
Carl, was it
50,
It is
50?
50.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any conversation, discussion about any of these items? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen,
Alan, aye.
We can move.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Right?
Davis,
That was yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
All righty. Okay, that is the end of our consent agenda. I believe that there's no need for executive session.
Oh, darn. Oh, okay, move.
I'm disappointed.
Okay, are there any committee reports?
It's not a committee report, but I have a comment.
Yes, Mr.
When I was looking at the November schedule, it was done wrong. Usually when the Wednesday is the first day of the month, you go to the next Wednesday and have the executive session, which would be the 8th. And then that would put our county board at the 14th. Now, if you look at the paper of what you've done, we have a whole week in there that's empty.
I believe we have a special board meeting on
That's one day. one
November
day.
6th.
Where you think you're gonna ram something down our thing again. But that's only one day, and this was done last year. In the past, when the first day of the month is a Wednesday, you go to the next Wednesday for your board meeting. I've been here a while, and that's the way it's been. So we need to look at December and January to make them right.
Fine, absolutely. Can you make?
Lack
that
of
note?
institutional knowledge.
Institutional knowledge.
Probably
Well, we rely on you, Mr. Kenyon. That's your job,
So
institutional knowledge.
Yeah, well, I fell down on it.
Oh, no.
Madam Chair,
If the board wishes to take some action to correct it because of the notice requirements, it would be good to try to do that on the
You can
14th.
correct most of it.
Okay, hold on. So we have got a request
Reschedule the meetings.
to reschedule meetings that would be for December and for January, you're suggesting?
Yeah.
And that calendar has not yet been approved.
So
So,
the December one's done, but I didn't look at it in time.
so we will take a look at December and January.
Well, and you did one of those.
January would be on the annual.
Had to
meeting
drag you into it,
ordinance.
didn't he?
Good question.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. Adopt at the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, for December and January, the 1st is not a Wednesday.
Well, look at that. I'm not sure of that schedule, but look at it. But
In December, the 1st is on a Friday, and in January, the 1st is on a Monday. So is this not
Okay.
applicable?
It's not germane.
I thought that might be wrong too.
When's the
By
county,
calendar?
when's the county board meeting?
A phone with that on it. Mine's not a
No,
smart.
you still,
It's a dumb operator, smartphone.
We don't have to belabor this. We'll make sure that we take a look and make sure we use the institutional knowledge and take a good look at it, because we do have a small committee that is taking a look at this, as long as it's complementary to the Forest Preserve District, because I know that that has been actively worked upon. Yes, sir.
Can I move we adjourn?
Well, hold on a second.
Like
Let's see if
now,
we-
you want more?
Yes, absolutely. We have, are there, yes, so we have more committee reports. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. I would just like to,
Yeah, we don't want to hear your report.
I would just like to, advise the legislative committee has been moved to the 20th from the 22nd. You care, stop it. And I appreciate, working with my fellow chair, Ms. Strathman. I know staff will appreciate that the day before Thanksgiving.
Madam Chair, so that means the Public Health Committee is also moved to that Monday, the 20th.
Very good. That excellent pies will be made in your both
There we
your
go.
mutual kitchens.
And, you know, I just thought the day before Thanksgiving, staff might appreciate that, so.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we'll have a marathon on that.
Lots of pies being made by Mr. Roth defers.
No, that's this Saturday. We're making 1,800.
All right.
Can I move we adjourn it?
No, cannot.
You have a request for public comment on a non-agenda item.
We're at.
Mr. Lausen is
is-
signed up.
Is Mr. Lawson in the room? Yeah, is he online? Since I don't see him
So sad.
online, I believe at this point,
I move we adjourn.
is there,
The one.
Gonzel second.
thank you. All in favor? Aye.